In this video, we'll be looking at the most insane Futurama theories to fall asleep to. Let's get started with our first one. In episode Space Pilot 3000, Fry gets a prank call pizza delivery on New Year's Eve 1999, and it turns out to be the most elaborate setup since Ocean's 11, except instead of George Clooney, you've got a tiny alien tripod thing orchestrating the whole operation from the shadows. The transcript literally mentions the shadow of a small creature under the desk right before Fry takes his 1,000-year nap. That's Nibbler. That's the smoking gun. That's basically proof that Fry's entire life trajectory was hijacked by a three-eyed alien who decided humanity's fate depended on a pizza delivery boy who couldn't even keep his girlfriend from dumping him in a cab. The year is 1999, and Fry's life is basically a highlight reel of human failure playing on repeat like the world's most depressing blooper reel. His girlfriend Michelle dumps him with her new boyfriend right there in the cab, which is just chef's kiss levels of brutal. Some random dude steals his bike while wishing him a happy new year. The audacity. And he's delivering pizzas to prank addresses because apparently that's where his career peaked. The man literally cycles through the streets chanting "I hate my life" like it's a meditation mantra, which honestly feels like the kind of thing that should trigger some sort of wellness check from the universe. This is the guy the universe decided to put all its chips on, which really says something about the state of humanity's prospects. Somewhere out in space, Nibbler's people looked at the entire human population and went, yeah, that guy, the one who can't hold down a relationship or remember to lock his bike properly, he's our chosen one. The Nibblonians basically decided humanity's last hope was someone who peaks at operating a Monkey Fracas Junior arcade game and loses, even at that. They had the entire span of human history to choose from. Every genius, every hero, every person who actually had their life together. And they picked the guy who gets told, "You stink, loser," by random children at arcade machines. Panucci's Pizza becomes the launching pad for the entire conspiracy, which is like saying your local 7-Eleven is actually a front for international espionage. Fry's working New Year's Eve because of course he is. Successful people are at parties, and Fry's at work getting yelled at by his boss about pizza deliveries. The delivery note says, "I see Wiener and Fry," takes it to Applied Cryogenics on the 64th floor. Applied Cryogenics, for the record, has a sign proudly displaying no power failures. Since 1997, which feels ominous in that we're definitely going to have a power failure kind of way, except the failure here is way more existential than electrical. The building's completely empty. Everyone's at Times Square watching Dick Clark's head count down to Y2K, which, fun fact, turns out to be a non-event technologically speaking, but a major event for Fry personally. The place is so deserted that Fry just walks right into the freezer room, wipes condensation off a pod to reveal some frozen guy's face, casual nightmare fuel, and basically makes himself at home in what's essentially a high-tech morgue for people who aren't dead yet. The tension builds as midnight approaches. Fry sits there realizing he's fallen for the oldest trick in the pizza delivery handbook, which tracks for someone whose life achievements include successfully operated bicycle and dated girl who was definitely cheating on him. He cracks open a beer, puts his feet up on the desk in this empty cryogenics facility health code violation anyone, and toasts to another lousy millennium with all the enthusiasm of someone attending their own funeral. The global countdown starts. They show everyone from Paris to Egypt to the Vatican, where the Pope holds up a sign with Roman numerals because apparently even the Catholic Church gets festive with their countdown. The whole world is celebrating the turn of the millennium, every time zone getting their moment, every culture doing their thing. Meanwhile, somewhere in that room, Nibbler's hiding under the desk like the world's tiniest criminal mastermind, waiting for the exact right moment to execute operation. Make this guy humanity's savior. The timing has to be perfect. The chair has to tip at exactly the right angle. Fry has to fall at exactly the right trajectory. 1 degree off and Fry splatters on the floor instead of landing in the freezer, and humanity's doomed because their backup plan probably involved someone even less qualified, which honestly seems impossible, but the universe has surprised us before. The moment arrives at midnight. Fry's doing the whole New Year's thing, badly. Even his celebration is depressed. Unenthusiastically blows a noisemaker, like he's fulfilling a legal obligation to acknowledge the calendar change, and starts falling backward in his chair. In that split second of chaos, the transcript tells us he doesn't see the shadow of a small creature under the desk. Doesn't see. That's the key phrase right there. Buried in the stage directions, like a confession hidden in plain sight. Nibbler's there, orchestrating this entire thing like a tiny purple mission, impossible agent who probably has the theme music playing in his head. Fry tumbles backward into cryogenic freezer number 40. Even the freezer number feels like it was specifically chosen for him, like Nibbler called ahead and reserved it. The dial automatically sets itself to 1,000 years. How convenient that it just knows to set itself for exactly 1,000 years and can do that automatically. And boom, Nibbler just successfully time displaced the only person who could save the universe. The fact that the timer automatically sets itself is the cherry on top of this conspiracy sundae. Nothing about this was an accident. The machine doesn't have a "whoops, you fell in, so let me just randomly pick a number setting." That dial knew exactly what it was doing, which means someone programmed it, which means this whole thing was premeditated temporal manipulation. Fry screams, gets flash frozen in time, and the stage directions tell us that days and nights pass, then years, then civilizations getting destroyed by aliens twice, until huge buildings spring up around applied cryogenics, and the timer finally stops 1,000 years later. Right after Fry gets frozen, Nibbler presumably just waddles away into the night or morning, since it's now January 1st, 2000, leaving zero evidence that he was ever there, except for maybe some tiny footprints that janitors probably swept up thinking they were rat tracks. The beauty of this setup is that everyone in the year 3000 just thinks Fry's an idiot who fell into a freezer while drunk on cheap beer. Leela, the professor, the lab technicians who wake him up with their dramatic, "Welcome to the world of tomorrow" routine. Everyone just assumes this guy stumbled his way into the future through pure incompetence. The story writes itself. Local moron falls into freezer, wakes up 1,000 years later, still moron. Terry and Lou don't question why someone would be frozen for exactly 1,000 years. They just process him like he's another routine defrosting. Meanwhile, Nibbler's entire species has been playing 4D chess with the timeline, knowing that humanity needed this specific schmuck because he's the only person without the brain thingy that the brain spawn can detect. That gets revealed way later in The Why of Fry, proving this theory holds water like a properly sealed cryogenic chamber. Fry wakes up thinking he's the victim of the worst luck in human history, when really he's the target of the most successful intelligence operation in the history of the universe. What makes this even more twisted is how everything after the freezing plays out like Nibbler knew it would. Fry initially celebrates being in the future, literally says, "Yahoo!" when he realizes everyone from his old life is gone, which is the kind of response that makes you wonder about his mental health. Leela tries to force him into being a delivery boy again through the career chip system, which sends Fry running through the future, trying to escape the exact job Nibbler arranged for him to have in 1999. He meets Bender in a suicide booth, casual Thursday activities in the year 3000. They become friends, and eventually Fry ends up working for Professor Farnsworth at Planet Express as, wait for it, a delivery boy. The circle completes itself. Fry spends the entire episode running from his predetermined career, only to end up right back where he started, except now he's happy about it because he thinks he chose it. The professor even pulls out career chips from an envelope marked "Contents of Space Wasp's Stomach, previous crew didn't make it, rip to those poor sons of guns," and Fry accepts the delivery boy chip willingly. Nibbler basically played psychological manipulation bingo and won every square. Every decision Fry made in his life before the freezing, dropping out of college, dating Michelle, who was clearly going to dump him, taking the pizza delivery job at Panucci's specifically, even playing that arcade game at the beginning where he loses and some kid tells him he stinks, might have been influenced or at least monitored by Nibbler's people to ensure he'd be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Free will becomes a cosmic joke when you realize alien intelligence was potentially puppeteering your entire existence to make sure you deliver one specific pizza to one specific prank address. The Nibblonians looked at causality, laughed, and decided to make one guy's entire existence a setup for saving reality itself. Every time Fry failed at something in his old life, every humiliation and setback was potentially a course correction to keep him on the path toward that freezer. His life was basically the Truman Show, except instead of reality TV, it was reality-saving television, and the producers were hyper-intelligent aliens who eat dark matter and poop out starship fuel. They turned one man's mediocrity into a weapon against cosmic threats, which is either the most inspiring thing ever or the most depressing, depending on whether you're Fry or literally anyone else watching this unfold. Now let's move on to the next theory. In episode The Series Has Landed, the crew visits Luna Park, a Disney-esque theme park on the moon, and discovers something genuinely disturbing lurking beneath all the cotton candy and corporate mascots. The park's Destination Moon ride presents a completely fabricated version of the moon landing featuring singing whaler bots and comedy gophers, while the narrator casually drops this absolute bomb. No one knows where, when, or how man first landed on the moon. That's the sound of every conspiracy theorist from 1969 to 2999 doing a victory lap in their graves. Somehow, between Fry's time and the year 3000, the people who thought the moon landing was filmed in a Hollywood basement actually won the argument. And now the real history has been memory-holed so hard that it's literally treated as unknowable ancient mythology. The year 3000 has turned the moon into capitalism's wet dream. Luna Park sits under a dome on the lunar surface, complete with mascots, overpriced merchandise, and rides that would make Walt Disney's frozen head weep with joy, assuming his head is actually frozen somewhere, which honestly feels plausible in this universe. The park sells "I'm with Stupid on the Moon" t-shirts and "What part of moon don't you understand?" fridge magnets to tourists who apparently have disposable income and terrible taste. Fry's excited because he finally gets to visit the moon he dreamed about as a delivery boy in New York, the romantic celestial body that represented everything unreachable and aspirational. Amy's thrilled because it's the happiest place orbiting Earth, which really sets the bar pretty low considering it's the only place orbiting Earth. The crew has to deliver a crate to the park, giving them the perfect excuse to experience all this manufactured lunar joy. Leela, being the responsible captain on her first mission, wants to deliver the package professionally and leave. Fry, being Fry, immediately wants to abandon all responsibility and ride bumper cars. The tension starts building the moment Fry realizes the entire moon experience is fake. The gravity's artificial, the air's artificial, even the gophers are artificial. Though let's be real, robotic gophers telling meteor jokes is probably an improvement over real gophers. Fry tosses his candy floss in the trash and runs to a window, staring out at the actual lunar surface like a kid pressing his nose against a pet store window. He wants the real moon, the one where you can jump around in low gravity and leave footprints that'll last for millennia. Leela tries to explain that the phony stuff is what's fun, that it's boring out there, which is basically the thesis statement of modern entertainment culture. Bender drops a reference to Jerusalem's Sexteria, because of course that's where his mind goes, and they decide to compromise by going on the Luna Rover ride, which lets you drive around on the surface while learning educational facts. The ride bills itself as educational, which in theme park language means nobody wants to wait in this line. Then comes the moment that should have broken the internet if the internet still existed as a concept people cared about. The ride's narrator announces in their cheerful, pre-recorded voice, "No one knows where, when, or how man first landed on the moon, but our Fungineers think it might have happened something like this." Excuse me? No one knows? Fry immediately protests with "I do," because he literally lived in the century when it happened, watched it on television, probably, and grew up in a world where Neil Armstrong was a household name. The ride then presents its Fungineered version of history featuring whaler bots filing out of the lunar module singing their sea shanty and goofy gophers popping out of craters. When Fry insists that's not how it happened, Leela hits him with the most devastating comeback possible. "Oh really? I don't see you with a Fungineering degree." Fungineering has apparently replaced actual engineering, actual history, and actual facts in the hierarchy of credible sources. Some corporate theme park designers' imaginative interpretation of events now carries more weight than the literal eyewitness account from someone who was alive when it happened. After Fry derails the ride, literally throws a harpoon to get the moon buggy off its track because subtle was never his strong suit, they end up lost on the lunar surface and stumble across something that should be one of humanity's most protected historical sites, the Apollo 11 landing site. Fry's absolutely thrilled, pointing out the American flag and Neil Armstrong's footprint with the enthusiasm of an archaeologist discovering Atlantis. He even stamps over the footprint, realizes his foot is bigger, and has a moment of childlike joy about it, which is simultaneously endearing and mildly horrifying from a historical preservation standpoint. Leela's response perfectly captures how far society has fallen. Fry, look around. It's just a crummy plastic flag and a dead man's tracks in the dust. She sees literal proof of humanity's greatest achievement and dismisses it as trash. The flag that represented human ambition, scientific achievement, and the culmination of decades of work gets downgraded to crummy plastic. Armstrong's footprint, the first human mark on another celestial body, becomes just a dead man's tracks in the dust. The crew only survives the freezing lunar night because they hide inside the Apollo 11 lander, using humanity's past achievement as an emergency shelter, which feels like the most perfect metaphor for how the future treats history. What makes this situation genuinely unsettling beyond the usual "corporations ruined everything" commentary is the implication that conspiracy theorists, they fundamentally reshaped cultural memory. The ride narrator's casual statement that nobody knows how the moon landing happened suggests that somewhere between 1999 and 3000, the historical record got so muddied, so contested, so buried under layers of misinformation and counter-narratives that society just collectively gave up on establishing truth. The real landing site is described as lost for centuries, meaning that at some point, humanity literally forgot where they landed on the moon. That's like forgetting where you parked your car, except the car is one of your species' greatest achievements, and the parking lot is an entire celestial body. The education system of the year 3000 apparently teaches that lunar history is unknowable, which means every textbook, every documentary, every educational institution has accepted defeat in the face of conflicting narratives. Teachers probably don't even try to establish facts anymore. They just shrug and say, well, some fungineers think it might have happened this way, but who really knows? The scary part is how this mirrors real-world trends in Fry's original timeline and beyond. People in 1999 were already questioning the moon landing despite overwhelming evidence, photographs, video footage, moon rocks, and thousands of witnesses. By 2025, we've got people convinced the Earth is flat, birds are government surveillance drones, and Finland doesn't exist. The Futurama writers basically looked at the trajectory of conspiracy culture and extrapolated it forward 1,000 years to its logical conclusion. A world where facts are so contested that society stops bothering with them entirely and just lets theme parks write history. Luna Park's version of events becomes the default narrative because it's fun, it's accessible, and it doesn't require anyone to agree on uncomfortable things like objective reality. The truth is still out there, quite literally. The Apollo 11 site exists, complete with physical evidence. Everyone's just decided that physical evidence is less important than good vibes and animatronic entertainment. Fry's attempt to show Leela the moon through his eyes, the way I used to, represents the last gasp of actual historical memory trying to assert itself against corporate sanitized mythology. He's literally the only person in the entire year 3000 who remembers when the moon landing was a documented, celebrated, universally acknowledged achievement. Everyone else has been raised in a world where history is negotiable, facts are determined by committee, or by fungineers, and the past exists primarily as theme park content. When Leela finally appreciates the moon, it's through viewing Earth from the lunar surface UCR. She finds beauty in the experience, proving Fry's point about wonder and perspective. The moment works emotionally, while simultaneously highlighting how tragedy and triumph can coexist, /lease. They found connection and meaning while sitting in the ruins of a civilization that forgot its own greatest achievement. Conspiracy theorists won the culture war so thoroughly that future generations don't even know there was a war. They just accept that history is unknowable, truth is relative, and the fungineers are probably close enough. Alright, time for the next theory. But before we move on, subscribe to our channel. In episode I, Roommate, Bender's apartment at Robot Arms Apartments presents a spatial impossibility that would make physicists weep and architects question their entire education. The place is described as exactly 2 cubic meters total, which means Bender and Fry together take up 1.5 cubic meters, leaving room for a whole nother 2/3 of a person, according to Bender's totally legitimate math. The apartment somehow contains a TV area, a breakfast nook, and what Bender calls wasted space where Fry will be living, all crammed into a space roughly the size of a refrigerator box. Then, at the end of the episode, after Bender cuts off his antenna to move back in with Fry, they discover the closet contains a massive living space that's bigger than most New York studio apartments. The door swings open to reveal what's essentially an entire additional apartment hidden inside a closet inside an apartment that shouldn't physically be able to exist. Bender's apartment is dimensionally transcendent, and somehow nobody in the year 3000 thinks this is worth mentioning. Fry starts the episode living at Planet Express, treating the office like his personal frat house. He uses the emergency chemical burn shower as his bathroom, the ship's engines as a hairdryer, exposing himself to massive radiation for great lift, and casually eats Farnsworth's 29-million-year-old alien mummy like it's beef jerky. The final straw comes when Farnsworth discovers this culinary crime and gets outraged because he was planning to eat that mummy himself. The crew stages an intervention by literally pushing Fry out the front door while he's still on the couch, dumping him and Bender outside. Hermes helpfully adds, "We'll bill you for the couch," before closing the door. Bender invites Fry to move in with him, mentioning he's always wanted a pet. They head to Robot Arms Apartments, a dark and rundown building where all the apartment numbers are written in binary. Bender gives Fry the grand tour of his new home, and here's where the physics gets weird. The entire apartment is so cramped that Fry complains he doesn't even have room to hang his clothes. Bender's response? "Look, pal, you've only got one set of clothes, and you're not taking them off while I'm here." Bender immediately goes to sleep. Sleep talking about killing all humans, while Fry tries to figure out where the bathroom is. "Bath what?" Bender asks, genuinely confused. Fry ends up curled on the floor while Bender dreams about sexy robot mamas. The next day, Fry shows up with a twisted neck because Bender installed carpeting, and now Fry's head hits the ceiling. Fry decides to move out, and Bender responds with exact measurements that make zero sense. "My place is 2 cubic meters, and we only take up 1.5 cubic meters. We've got room for a whole nother 2/3 of a person. 2 cubic meters is roughly the size of a washing machine. A large washing machine." Bender's claiming they're living comfortably in washing machine space with room to spare for 67% of another person. The math works, barely, but the logistics absolutely don't. Where's the TV? Where's the breakfast nook? Where does Bender sleep? How did Bender install carpeting in a space that's essentially a vertical coffin? They go apartment hunting and see places underwater complete with attacking squid, apartments built in impossible Escher-style architecture, and one suspiciously fantastic place in New Jersey. They end up scoring Dr. Mbutu's old apartment after Farnsworth gets a phone call about his colleague dying to shreds, according to the phone. The apartment is gorgeous with a huge space, upper floor, and incredible view. Everything's perfect until they try to watch All My Circuits and discover the TV cuts out whenever Bender's in the room. Hattie, the landlady, shows up with a scanner, discovers Bender's antenna is causing interference with everyone's satellite TV, and the mob of neighbors demands Bender leave immediately. Fry chooses the apartment over his best friend. Bender tries suggesting alternatives, and Fry just asks if there's a way to do this with Bender going and Fry not going. "I don't understand," Bender says, and honestly, it's heartbreaking. Bender walks out saying, "Happy." Yeah, that's Bender. Always happy, in the most depressed robot voice possible. He falls into a depression spiral that includes not drinking, robot alcoholism, works backwards, and developing 5 o'clock rust. Leela finds him falling apart, and Bender eventually shows up at Fry's apartment sober and crazy, ready to cut off his own antenna so they can be roommates again. The TV show they're watching provides the moral lesson. Calculon and human friend reconcile with, "You're my best friend. I'm sorry I treated you so badly." Bender and Fry repeat these lines, except they do it backwards. Bender apologizes when Fry should be the one apologizing. Fry realizes cutting off Bender's antenna was wrong. They find it outside with help from cops, and they move back to Bender's original apartment at Robot Arms. Then comes the reveal that breaks reality. Fry asks if his miniature fruit salad tree will get enough light. Bender mentions there's a window in the closet and pushes a button. A door swings open to reveal a large living space, according to the transcript. Fry walks into it and exclaims, "This is huge. Bender, why don't I just live in here?" Bender's response, "In a closet? Oh, humans." Like Fry's the weird one for suggesting someone live in a space that's actually livable. The apartment that was 2 cubic meters total somehow contains a closet with a large living space inside it. The space that was too small for Fry to stand up in after carpeting was installed somehow has a window. Windows require exterior walls, and enough room for Fry to walk around comfortably. The implications are staggering when you actually think about the geometry involved. The building has apartment numbers in binary, suggesting hundreds or thousands of units packed together tightly. Bender's apartment is apparently one of these closely packed units, yet it contains a closet inside a 2 cubic meter space that opens into a large living area. the space inside the closet is bigger than the space containing the closet, which violates every law of physics and architecture that humans have established over millennia. Either the robot arms building exists in some kind of folded dimensional space where the interior doesn't match the exterior, or robot housing developers have discovered a way to create pocket dimensions and are just casually using this reality-breaking technology for affordable housing. The cultural acceptance makes it even stranger. Nobody questions this. Fry, a man from the 20th century where physics worked normally, walks into a closet that's bigger on the inside, and his only response is to ask why he didn't just live in there from the start. Bender acts like this is completely normal, even mocking Fry for suggesting someone would live in a closet. Leela, Amy, Hermes, Farnsworth, CSC, none of them ever mention that it seems to violate the fundamental nature of reality. The year 3000 has apparently normalized dimensionally transcendent spaces to the point where they're not even worth commenting on. Robot housing might routinely incorporate this technology, which means robots have access to spatial manipulation that would revolutionize every aspect of civilization, and they're using it primarily so they can live in tiny apartments that are actually huge inside while paying rent appropriate for tiny apartments. That's either the greatest housing hack in history or the most elaborate real estate scam ever perpetrated on robot kind. Now let's jump into the next theory. In episode Love's Labors Lost in Space, the crew discovers Nibbler on Vergon 6 right before the planet implodes, and this adorable little trash panda with 3 eyes casually poops out enough dark matter to fuel their entire spaceship. Leela realizes his species must have filled the entire planet with it, which sounds like a throwaway explanation for why Vergon 6 had all that valuable fuel in the first place. Except, here's the thing. Farnsworth explicitly states that Vergon 6 was filled with a super dense substance known as dark matter, each pound of which weighs over 10,000 pounds, and that it's extremely valuable as starship fuel. The entire planet was basically one giant gas station, mined completely hollow by the Democratic Order of Planets, and now we're supposed to believe it just naturally occurred that way? The Nibblonians didn't randomly evolve on a fuel planet, Tutu says. They terraformed it. They've been running the galaxy's energy infrastructure this whole time, and everyone's too distracted by how cute they are to notice they're basically living OPEC cartels with eye stalks. Leela's having a terrible time with dating in the year 3000. Her latest disaster involves Doug, a seemingly normal guy who turns out to have a vile lizard tongue. The crew tries helping at the hip joint where everyone's wearing groovy rings specifically because nobody wears them anymore. Leela shoots down every potential suitor, while Bender uses his gaydar, an actual device he pulls from his chest cabinet. Meanwhile, Farnsworth interrupts their social disaster to announce a tax-deductible mission of charity, rescuing animals from Vergon 6, a doomed planet about to collapse because it was mined completely hollow. The setup reveals some genuinely disturbing economic practices. Vergon 6 was filled with dark matter so valuable as starship fuel that the Democratic Order of Planets sent a mining crew to extract every single pound of it, leaving the planet completely hollow and scheduled to implode within 3 days. Leela keeps asking about the animals and Farnsworth keeps ignoring her because apparently environmental impact studies are still getting ignored 1,000 years into the future. They meet Zap Brannigan along the way, the most decorated captain in the Democratic Order, who defeated a horde of rampaging killbots by sending wave after wave of his own men at them, until the killbots reach their preset kill limit and shut down. Zap tries to stop the rescue mission because of Brannigan's law, then hits on Leela in his velour-covered quarters called the Lovenasium. Leela ends up sleeping with Zap in a moment of weakness. She claims her common sense was overwhelmed by pity for exactly a split second, then escapes to Vergon 6 to complete the rescue mission. They successfully collect all the animals on their checklist. Right at the end, this small black creature with 1 huge nostril and 3 eyes waddles out from behind some plants. Leela names him Nibbler before Bender can fire up the grill for an impromptu barbecue. They load Nibbler into the cargo bay with all the other rescued animals, and he immediately eats 1 whole, which should have been everybody's first clue that something weird was happening. By the time they finish collecting the last species, they open the cargo bay to discover Nibbler sitting alone in an empty room. He's eaten every single animal they rescued, the entire ark's worth of creatures. Then the planet starts collapsing, and Leela discovers they're out of fuel because Bender forgot to fill the tank. Just when death seems inevitable, there's a huge bang. They rush to the cargo bay and find a big, round, black blob in Nibbler's litter tray. Leela realizes it's dark matter. Bender asks the obvious question, so this guy just unloaded a steaming pile of starship fuel? That's when Leela drops the bombshell. His species must have filled the entire planet with it. She says this casually, like it's just a fun biology fact, when really, it's an admission that Nibblonians are capable of planetary-scale resource generation. They escape moments before Varagon 6 explodes. Crisis averted, and everyone goes home thinking they're heroes. Leela writes in her diary that she found a cute little companion who excretes starship fuel, and that's just as good as finding love, then immediately tears out the page because even she knows that sounds insane. Here's where the conspiracy gets galaxy-sized. The Nibblonians filled an entire planet with the most valuable substance in the universe, the fuel that makes all space travel possible. They didn't evolve on a planet that happened to have dark matter deposits. Their species actively produced those deposits on a scale that filled a planetary core. The democratic order of planets mined it all out, creating an environmental catastrophe. And nobody stopped to wonder where all that fuel came from originally. The Nibblonians seeded that planet with dark matter, probably seeded dozens or hundreds of other planets too, and every spacefaring civilization in the galaxy depends entirely on fuel that cute little eye-stalked creatures produce through their digestive systems. They're not victims of human expansion, they're the invisible hand controlling which civilizations get to travel through space and which ones stay grounded. The economic implications make your brain hurt if you think about them too long. Dark matter is described as extremely valuable and essential for starship fuel, meaning every military, every cargo fleet, every passenger transport depends on it. Whoever controls the supply controls everything. The Nibblonians built the infrastructure of galactic civilization by literally pooping out the one resource nobody can function without, then sat back and watched everyone fight over the deposits while looking too adorable to suspect. It's the ultimate long con. When Varagon 6 gets mined out and collapses, the Nibblonians lose one production facility among, presumably, many. Nibbler survives, gets adopted by Leela, and now lives on a spaceship where he continues producing fuel. Does Leela just clean out his litter box and throw away literal starship fuel? The episode ends without addressing this because everyone's too busy celebrating to realize they've adopted a creature whose bathroom breaks could power interstellar commerce. Looking back with knowledge from later episodes revealing Nibblonians as ancient hyper-intelligent beings who manipulate cosmic events, this episode transforms from a silly rescue mission into proof of their longest-running operation. They engineered the entire foundation of space-age economics. Every government, every corporation, every individual with a spaceship is dependent on a resource that one species controls completely. The Nibblonians are playing civilization itself like a strategy game, and they won before anyone else even knew the game existed. Varagon 6 was just one square on their board, and when it got used up, they moved on. The democratic order of planets thinks they're exploiting natural resources, when really they're just harvesting what the Nibblonians planted millions of years ago. That's some next-level planetary engineering, disguised as evolutionary biology, and the fact that Nibbler looks like a three-eyed beanie baby means nobody will ever suspect him of running the galaxy's energy infrastructure from Leela's apartment. Moving forward to the next theory, if you're enjoying the video so far, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In episode Fear of a Bot Planet, Bender delivers a package to Chapek 9, a robot separatist colony where humans are killed on sight, and discovers an entire civilization built on manufactured hatred. The robots watch propaganda films about murderous humans who eat robot heads and drain coolant, hold daily human hunts that never find anything, and cheer when Bender gives speeches about human annihilation. Then the robot elders casually admit they know humans are harmless and have been using them as scapegoats to distract from the real problems: crippling lugnut shortages and a corrupt government of incompetent robot elders. The Blue Elder literally says they're useful to us as a scapegoat to distract the public from their real problem. Chapek 9 runs on weaponized paranoia, and the people in charge know exactly what they're doing. They've turned fear into a government policy so effective that even revealing the truth wouldn't matter because the population is too invested in hating humans to care about boring things like resource management and political corruption. The episode starts at Madison Cube Garden, where the crew watches Blurnsball baseball but jazzed up with springy things and a 7th-inning grope. Bender gets upset about robot discrimination in sports. pointing out that robots only do crap work like bat boys and ball polishers while humans get all the glory positions. Farnsworth interrupts with great news. They're delivering a package to Chapek 9, a world where humans are killed on sight. The planet was colonized centuries ago by radical robot separatists, and Farnsworth describes them as murderous, which Bender takes offense to because apparently wanting to kill humans doesn't automatically make you radical. Bender has to make the delivery alone since Leela and Fry would be murdered immediately. He tries to get out of it by claiming it's Robanuka, the holiest 2 weeks on the robot calendar. But Hermes points out he already used all his religious holidays, including Robamadan and Robonza. Bender gets lowered to the surface with the winch, and everything goes smoothly until he calls back, saying they found out he works with humans. The phone cuts out mid-panic, leaving Fry and Leela to mount a rescue mission disguised as robots, using cardboard boxes and aluminum foil. They pass the entrance test by choosing a properly formatted data file over a puppy, the bad kind of puppy, not mechanical, then wander around asking robots if they've seen Bender. A helpful robot offers to patch Fry's coolant leak with hot resin after Fry uses a bathroom behind some garbage cans, which nearly blows their cover. Leela sneezes, robots don't sneeze, kicks over the suspicious robot, and they duck into a cinema showing anti-human propaganda. The movie is pure 50s horror schlock with robot teenagers at makeout point getting attacked by a human who tears off heads and eats them while screaming, "I will eat and digest you all with my system of mighty organs." The human breathes fire, is impervious to magnetic fields, and eventually dies from a harmless, sharpened stick. The robot general points at the camera and warns that humans are lurking in our playgrounds, our breezeways, perhaps even our movie theaters, which makes the audience scream. Fry comments there was too much romance and not enough human killing, perfectly mimicking robot preferences. When the movie ends, it's 5 o'clock. Time for the daily human hunt. The robots congregate with weapons while sharing rumors about humans unscrewing lug nuts at night and eating them at human brunches. The robot mayor introduces their special guest, Bender, who delivers a rousing speech about human annihilation and sells his spoken word album for $18.95. Fry and Leela eventually find Bender at an abandoned adult bookstore. Robot pornography equals circuit diagrams, and try to rescue him. Bender refuses, saying he loves the planet because he has wealth, fame, and access to sleaze. He tells Fry he's just a machine to them, no different than a toaster or electric chair. They're caught by robots and put on trial where a Mac judge considers the evidence complete with system error prompts and sentences them to spot weld automobiles until obsolete. The real twist comes when they're taken before the robot elders who reveal the entire truth. The Blue Elder explains humans are useful scapegoats to distract from real problems. The Green Elder mentions their crippling lug nut shortage. The Orange Elder adds, and a corrupt government of incompetent robot elders without any apparent irony or self-awareness. When Bender refuses to execute Fry and Leela, the elders try to kill all three of them because they know too much. The crew escapes when Fry threatens to breathe fire, and the elders can't remember if humans actually do that or if they made it up. They debate whether it was from the original movie or the remake while Fry, Leela, and Bender sneak away. Bender delivers the package during their escape. It's full of lug nuts, which the robots desperately needed, and the robots suddenly cheer for humans. The propaganda collapses the instant material needs are met, proving the whole hatred was artificial from the start. The genius is how transparent the authoritarian playbook becomes once you see it. The robot elders manufacture an external threat, humans, that justifies their failures while keeping the population distracted. Daily human hunts that never find anything don't reduce fear, no reinforce it by suggesting humans are so dangerous they're masters of hiding. The propaganda films teach robots what to fear without ever requiring actual human contact. Bender becomes a celebrity by reinforcing the narrative the elders need, getting wealth and fame for telling people what they already believe. When someone finally questions the system, Bender refusing to kill, the elders immediately try to eliminate the threat because truth is more dangerous than any human could ever be. The Orange Elder literally admits to corrupt government while explaining why they need scapegoats, suggesting either complete shamelessness or such deep belief in their system that they can't see their own hypocrisy. The population's instant shift from death to humans to hooray for humans when they get lug nuts reveals how shallow the manufactured hatred was. Material conditions matter more than ideology, but ideology is easier to manipulate than supply chains. Okay, on to the next theory. In episode A Fishful of Dollars, Fry discovers his 93-cent bank account has grown to $4.3 billion thanks to compound interest over 1,000 years, and he immediately goes on a spending spree that includes shooting the Mona Lisa with lasers and buying Ted Danson's skeleton for a sitcom idea. Then he learns that anchovies went extinct in the 2200s, fished to death, coincidentally right when Zoidberg's people arrived on Earth, and spends $50 million on the last can in existence. Mom, the adorable industrialist who runs a robot oil empire, desperately wants those anchovies because their natural oil could lubricate robots permanently, which would destroy her entire business model. Fry ends up with a choice: sell the anchovies to the richest woman in the world and become even wealthier, or eat them and share the experience with his friends. The fact that he chooses to eat them reveals something genuinely surprising about his character when faced with the ultimate capitalist decision. The guy who just spent millions on vintage junk chooses ephemeral experience over permanent profit. The anchovies become a perfect symbol for how corporate greed destroys irreplaceable things, and Fry's decision represents the one form of wealth that actually matters: memories you can't buy back. Fry starts the episode getting woken up by squeaking springs from the apartment next door, which turns out to be robots playing poker. Their springy bodies squeak constantly. Then he has a nightmare about taking an ancient Egyptian algebra final in his underwear, except the nightmare is actually a commercial for Lightspeed brand briefs that gets broadcast directly into his brain via gamma radiation. Farnsworth demonstrates this by injecting an egg with liquid, which immediately explodes and covers him and Leela in yolk. Fry complains about ads in dreams being like brainwashing, then lists everywhere ads appeared in the 20th century: TV, radio, magazines, movies, ball games, buses, milk cartons, t-shirts, bananas written on the sky, before declaring, "But not in dreams, no sir-ee." The gang immediately rushes out to buy merchandise at low prices, which lands them at Alien Overlord and Taylor, where Bender gets caught shoplifting Mom's old-fashioned robot oil by hiding cans under a sweater. They're 50 cents short to pay Bender's fine, so Fry checks his old bank account at Big Apple Bank. The teller asks for his PIN number, which Fry remembers as the price of a cheese pizza and a large soda back where I used to work, Panucci's Pizza. His balance of 93 cents has grown to $4.3 billion after 1,000 years of compound interest at 2.25%. Fry hyperventilates, foams at the mouth, and faints. When he wakes up, he immediately becomes a cautionary tale about sudden wealth. He gets massages at Le Spa, shoots the Mona Lisa with lasers after buying it, throws a pizza dinner for everyone under $50 million, and moves into a historic 20th century apartment with original asbestos. His friends worry he's going a little wacko with his money, but Bender defends him while wearing a monocle because that's how rich people robot. The turning point comes at Staggy and Staggy Auctioneers, where Fry buys Ted Danson's skeleton for $10,000. I have an idea for a sitcom. Then the auctioneer announces the final item: an unopened can of angry Norwegian brand anchovies from 1997, guaranteed fresh and edible. Fry's immediately interested because he mentioned anchovies earlier at the pizza place, causing a robot chef's head to explode from computational confusion. Farnsworth explained that anchovies went extinct in the 2200s, fished to death, right around when Zoidberg's people arrived on Earth. Zoidberg confessed his species ate them all, saying, "We kept saying one more can't hurt, and then they were gone." That confession carries weight when you realize an entire species disappeared because of the tragedy of the commons. Everyone taking just one more until there's nothing left. Now the last can exists as a collectible, and Fry wants it desperately because he misses them and wants to share that experience with his friends. The bidding starts at $10,000 and immediately escalates. Fry bids $15,000, someone counters with $20,000, a Decapodian woman jumps to $40,000, and Fry hits $50,000. Then Mom enters the chat. She's the adorable industrialist from the robot oil commercials, the world's most huggable businesswoman who knits while selling products with 10% more love than the next leading brand. She bids $75,000, and Leela warns Fry he can't bid against the richest, most powerful person in the world. Fry bids $100,000 anyway. The bidding accelerates. Mom goes to $300,000. Fry counters with $500,000. Mom hits $1 million, and they rapid fire through $2, $6, $14, and $23 million. Fry panics and bids $1 jillion, which the auctioneer informs him is not a number. then settles on 50 million. Mom graciously concedes, calling Fry a nice young man and tipping her bonnet to him. The crowd murmurs about how adorable and classy she is while booing Fry for winning. The reveal of why Mom wanted those anchovies transforms the entire situation from eccentric rich person bidding war into existential threat to her corporate empire. Back at Mom's friendly robot company, she jumps out of her fat suit. The adorable grandma persona is literally just a costume, drinks cream soda, smokes cigarettes, and explains the situation to her 3 sons, Walt, Larry, and Ignor. She produces 10 billion robots worth of robot oil by selling Mom's old-fashioned robot oil for oil changes every 3,000 miles. That's a buttload of oil according to her exact financial analysis. A single drop of anchovy oil would lubricate 10 robots permanently. If anyone got hold of anchovy DNA, they could extract the oil-making gene, stick it in third world kids, and create cheap, effective robot oil that would put Mom out of business. The anchovies represent an existential threat to her monopoly. She thinks Fry must be a mastermind of the highest order who knows their secret, when really he just wants to eat some salty fish he remembers from Panucci's Pizza. Fry locks himself in his apartment watching vintage commercials and listening to Sir Mix-a-Lot, which Leela calls classical music. Leela and Bender try to drag him back to the year 3000, but Fry declares he's finally found what he needs to be happy. It's not friends, it's things. Bender sadly responds, "I'm a thing," before they leave. Fry sits alone with his antique videos, his bucket of fossilized KFC, and $50 million worth of anchovies. He's got everything money can buy from his past, but he's completely isolated in his nostalgia. The choice Fry faces is stark. Keep the anchovies as an investment. Mom desperately wants them and would pay anything, or share them with his friends as an experience. Selling them to Mom means more wealth, maintaining his isolation, and letting corporate interests control the last remnant of an extinct species. Eating them means spending irreplaceable value on a moment that will never come back, choosing connection over capital. Fry choosing to eat the anchovies represents the anti-capitalist stance hiding inside his character. The guy who spent millions on Ted Danson's skeleton and vintage KFC ultimately values a shared meal with friends over infinite wealth. The anchovies went extinct because of overconsumption driven by profit motives. Mom's confession about genetic engineering shows how far corporations will go to maintain monopolies, and Fry's choice to consume them for joy rather than profit flips the script. He's choosing the one thing capitalism can never reproduce, an authentic experience from before everything valuable got commodified or destroyed. Next up, we've got another theory, and remember to subscribe to our channel. In episode My 3 Sons, Fry accidentally drinks the Emperor of Trisol, a sentient liquid being, thinking it's just a refreshing bottle of water, and discovers the Emperor survives inside his body, fully conscious and capable of communication. When the 3 suns set and Trisolians enter their nocturnal glowing phase, the Emperor's face appears on Fry's stomach and starts yelling, "They're over here! They're running up the stairs!" while directing guards to capture Fry so they can drain him out. The Emperor even has preferences about extraction methods, refusing to be dripped out through somebody's armpit and rating crying as slightly better than urination but worse than bone crushing. A fully sentient liquid being survives digestion, maintains consciousness inside a human body, and can communicate through the host's stomach like some kind of aquatic symbiote. The terrifying implication is that liquid-based consciousness could theoretically control or coexist within human bodies, which means every glass of water, every can of soda, every bottle of juice might contain sentient beings you're trapping inside your digestive system. Fry just wanted a drink and ended up becoming a biological prison for planetary royalty. The episode starts with Bender getting a deluxe robot wash, complete with undercoating that sends him into ecstasy, then immediately getting rained on. He's hiding his love of cooking shows from everyone, pretending he was watching pornography when caught viewing Essence of Elzar. Hermes calls him out for doing nothing but watching cooking shows all day, so Bender decides to become the ship's cook. Leela points out he's a robot without a sense of taste, and Bender fires back that he wouldn't talk about taste while wearing a lime green tank top. They head to Little Neptune to buy exotic gourmet ingredients, where Fry almost buys Z-ray eyes from an organ dealer. Z is just as good, in fact is better, is 2 more than X, and nearly trades his lungs for gills before Leela rescues him. Bender cooks a Neptunian slug for his first meal, but adds so much salt that it shrivels to nothing and everyone spits out the food along with the salt water he serves to drink. They deliver a package to Trisol, a mysterious world in the darkest depths of the Forbidden Zone. Farnsworth assures them it's fine because it's just a name, like the Death Zone or the Zone of No Return. All the zones have names like that in the Galaxy of Terror. Fry walks across the desert in sweltering heat, complaining about thirst, watches one sunset thinking it's finally cooling down, then two larger suns rise on the other horizon. He reaches the Trisol Palace throne room, finds it deserted, and sees a bottle of water beside the throne. He looks around, drinks the entire contents, and two Trisolian guards materialize from pools of water accusing him of drinking their emperor. Fry burps a small bubble containing the emperor, pops it, and laughs nervously. The guards announce he's assassinated the emperor and therefore becomes the new emperor himself. All hail the new guy who just committed accidental regicide through dehydration. Fry settles into emperor life, with Trisolian women fanning him and Bender as his prime minister. Leela tries to warn him he's in over his head, but Fry checks with Prime Minister Bender, who advises, "Stay the course, pal." The package Fry was supposed to deliver arrives. It's a sign saying, "Please don't drink the emperor," which gets there just in time to be completely useless. Murg the High Priest shows Fry the harem full of bottled Trisolian maidens, where Fry's choices raise eyebrows about his preferences, then explains the coronation ceremony requires flawlessly reciting the royal oath from memory. Leela discovers that Trisolian emperors average 1-week reigns because they all assassinate each other, DMN. Emperor Plon was drunk by Emperor Strug, who was immediately drunk by Schwab, creating a rapid succession of liquid monarchs consuming their predecessors. She warns Fry that half the emperors were drunk at their own coronations, assassinated, not intoxicated, though the distinction matters less when you're being consumed. Fry refuses to prepare, tells the grasshopper and octopus story that makes zero sense, and dismisses Leela's warnings. At the coronation ceremony, Fry recites the oath by reading it off his arm. I, Fry, who drank Bont the Viscous, who drank Ungo the Moist, who guzzled Zorn the Stagnant. As the three suns set, Trisolians enter their nocturnal phase and begin glowing lighter blue. Fry's stomach turns blue and grows a face. Emperor Bont, very much alive and very angry. Of course I'm alive. Now cut this creep open and drain me out. The guards chase Fry and the crew through the palace while Bont provides helpful directions from inside Fry's body. They're over here. They're running up the stairs. Bender punches Bont to shut him up, which just hurts Fry because punching someone's stomach punches everyone inside it. They barricade themselves in the throne room while Trisolians throw themselves at the door. Literally, they splash into water pools, then reform and try again. The crew tries various extraction methods. Zoidberg suggests a high-speed centrifuge, but admits, "Oh, right, with the bones. I always forget about the bones." Bender suggests sweating him out, but Bont refuses. As Emperor, I refuse to be dripped out through somebody's armpit. They settle on crying after Bont rates it as slightly better than urination or vomiting, but still preferring the bone-crushing option. Bender tries making Fry cry by insulting him. "You're a pimple on society's ass," reminding him everyone he loved is dead. These things happen, and declaring there's no God. Phew! That's a load off my mind. Nothing works until Bender lies about Leela dying while rescuing Fry, which finally makes him cry enough to partially drain Bont. Leela shows up alive, reveals Bender's deception, then beats up Fry to make him cry more. Eventually, everyone takes turns hitting Fry, including a Trisolian with a chair, and Bont gets fully cried out. The body horror implications are genuinely unsettling when you think about them. Emperor Bont survives being drunk, travels through Fry's digestive system, and emerges conscious and capable of directing his own rescue. He's maintaining full cognitive function, personality, and the ability to perceive what's happening outside the body he's trapped in. His face appearing on Fry's stomach suggests the liquid consciousness can interact with human biology in ways that allow communication and possibly control. Bont gives directions to guards, expresses preferences about extraction methods, and even participates in beating up Fry once extracted. If one liquid being can do this, theoretically any liquid being could. Every glass of water might contain microscopic Trisolians. Every can of soda could have sentient beings floating around. That bottle of Gatorade could be screaming for help from inside your stomach right now, and you'd never know until you enter your nocturnal phase and their face appears on your abdomen demanding release. The Trisolians' assassination by consumption tradition takes on new horror once you realize the victims remain conscious during digestion. Every emperor who got drunk by their successor spent time trapped inside their killer's body, watching their reign end from the inside. Emperor Plan experienced being consumed by Strug, then watched from inside Strug as Schwab drank them both, creating layers of liquid consciousness stacked inside bodies like nightmare Russian nesting dolls. The fact that this is their normal governmental succession means Trisolian politics involves temporary body sharing with your predecessor/victim. You drink the emperor, rule for a week with them commenting on your decisions from your stomach, then someone drinks you, and the cycle continues. It's the ultimate hostile takeover, merged with involuntary roommate situation, merged with cannibalism that's technically not cannibalism because you're different species, but feels worse somehow. Now we're heading to the next theory. In episode A Big Piece of Garbage, a massive ball of garbage launched into space by Old New York in 2052 returns to threaten the city in the year 3000. And the crew saves Earth by launching a second garbage ball to knock the first one into the sun. Everyone celebrates this brilliant solution until Leela asks the obvious question: should we really be celebrating? I mean, what if the second garbage ball returns to Earth like the first one did? Fry dismisses this with, "Who cares? That won't be for hundreds of years." Farnsworth agrees it's none of their concern, and Fry proudly declares, "That's the 20th century spirit." They just created the exact same problem they solved, guaranteeing future generations will face another garbage ball crisis, requiring another garbage ball solution, creating an infinite loop of trash-based catastrophes. Humanity learned nothing, solved nothing, and ensured the cycle continues forever. The 31st century spent 500 years becoming an environmentally conscious society that recycles everything, then immediately reverted to 21st century thinking the moment things got difficult. This garbage ball isn't a one-time crisis. It's proof humanity is trapped in an eternal time loop of repeating the same mistakes with slightly different technology. Farnsworth starts the episode announcing his latest invention for the Academy of Inventors annual symposium, the death clock, which tells you exactly how long you have left to live by jamming your finger in a hole. At the symposium, Farnsworth's rival Wernstrom, a former student he gave an A- to 100 years ago for poor penmanship, presents a reverse scuba suit that lets fish walk on land. Wernstrom reveals Farnsworth already presented the death clock last year, forcing the professor to invent something new in 10 minutes. He scribbles the smelloscope on paper, a telescope that lets you smell distant objects, and the Academy laughs him off stage while giving Wernstrom the prize. Farnsworth builds the smelloscope anyway, or remembers he built it last year, and Fry uses it to discover the smelliest object in the known universe, heading straight for Earth with enough force to reduce the city to a stinky crater in less than 72 hours. The computer identifies the object as the garbage ball launched by Old New York in 2052. An internet movie, which Farnsworth found while downloading pornography, naturally, explains that the year 2000 New York ran out of landfill space, filled New Jersey completely, then launched garbage into outer space under mob connections. The narrator casually mentions some experts claim the ball might return to Earth someday, but their concerns were dismissed as depressing. The 21st century literally knew this would happen and chose not to care because thinking about consequences was a bummer. Leela's outraged at 20th century wastefulness, asking, "How could you just throw your garbage away?" Fry defends his era by listing inventions. The light bulb, steamboat, and cotton gin that Leela points out are all from the 19th century. "Yeah, well, they probably just copied us," Fry responds, which perfectly captures his historical awareness. They warn Mayor Puppenmeyer, who calls in his science advisor, Wernstrom, who dismisses the smelloscope reading as possibly some cheese on the lens. Then Neptune transmits a message about the horrible stench before choking and cutting out, then continuing, then cutting out again. The mayor believes Farnsworth and asks about shooting missiles at it. A military simulation shows missiles would go right through because the ball is just too damn gooey. Farnsworth suggests sending a crew to plant explosives on the fault line between Coffee Grounds and America Online floppy disks. Wernstrom declares nobody would take a mission so suicidally dangerous. Farnsworth smiles at his crew and Bender groans, "Oh crap." The crew lands on the garbage ball wearing red spacesuits. Fry's thrilled to find Beanie Babies, Mr. Spock collector plates, and Bart Simpson dolls. This junk was garbage when it was new, Leela points out, but Fry insists it's a glorious monument to 20th century achievements. He digs into a random pile to prove you can find something great anywhere and emerges with a six-pack holder around his neck like a seagull. They plant the bomb, but discover Farnsworth set the timer upside down. You ate shit. Instead of 25 minutes, they have 52 seconds. Bender throws it into space, where it hits a comet, bounces back, and explodes uselessly. The garbage ball continues toward Earth while Bender scratches his butt. Back at City Hall, Wernstrom gets tenure and a research grant to save the city, then immediately leaves, declaring, "I'm set for life. Au revoir, suckers." Poppenmeyer wishes he could do something, but Wernstrom has tenure, which apparently makes him legally untouchable. Garbage starts raining down, hamburgers smash through buildings, and a fish skeleton lands in front of Zoidberg, who eats it after checking nobody's watching. Farnsworth suggests building an object the exact size, density, and consistency of the garbage ball to knock it away. Fry suggests using garbage. Good lord, a second ball of garbage. That just might work. Farnsworth exclaims like this is revolutionary thinking. Poppenmeyer protests that Manhattan has been garbage-free for 500 years, and they don't know how to make garbage anymore. Fry teaches the entire city his expertise. Stand back and watch the master. He knocks a Slurm can on the floor, declaring it garbage, sweeps papers off desks, drops a picture of the mayor's wife smashing the frame. Pure garbage. Now you try it. Poppenmeyer tentatively drops a pencil and discovers he has a natural talent for creating waste. They broadcast Fry's message citywide. Stop all this pain-in-the-ass recycling and throw your garbage on the floor. Women scrape food directly onto kitchen floors. Men empty cat litter out windows. The printing press dumps newspapers into heaps that get bulldozed away. The entire city embraces littering as civic duty. 500 years of environmental progress gets abandoned in an afternoon because one guy from the 20th century remembered how to be wasteful. They launch the new garbage ball at the old one, knocking it into the sun. Everyone celebrates except when Leela asks about the second garbage ball returning someday. Fry's response reveals the core problem. Who cares? That won't be for hundreds of years. Farnsworth agrees completely. Exactly. It's none of our concern. They solve today's crisis by creating tomorrow's identical crisis, and everyone's fine with this because future generations can deal with future problems. Fry calls this the 20th century spirit, like it's something to be proud of, and the crowd cheers. They're celebrating a solution that guarantees the same disaster will happen again, requiring another garbage ball solution, which will return requiring another garbage ball, creating an endless cycle of waste-based catastrophes, cascading through time. The loop reveals itself in the structure. 2052 humanity launched Garbage Ball 1, which returned in 3000. 3000 humanity launched Garbage Ball 2, which will return in approximately 3500, assuming similar orbital mechanics. 3500 humanity will need to launch Garbage Ball 3. 4000 gets Garbage Ball 4. Every 500 years, humanity faces a garbage ball crisis and solves it by creating the next one. The cycle never ends because the solution is the problem. Each generation thinks they're fixing a crisis when really they're just scheduling the next one for people who aren't born yet. The 21st century dismissed concerns as depressing. The 31st century dismissed concerns as none of our concern. Different words, identical philosophy. What makes this genuinely horrifying is that the 31st century had learned. They spent 5 centuries building a recycling-based society where nothing gets thrown away. Robots are made from old beer cans from old robots, sandwiches from old discarded sandwiches. They solved waste management completely. Then, one crisis hits, and they immediately abandon everything, reverting to the primitive solution of throwing garbage away and hoping future people deal with consequences. 500 years of cultural evolution erased in hours because kicking the can down the road, or in this case, launching the garbage ball into space, is easier than actually solving problems. The garbage ball isn't an anomaly. Problems, it's proof that humanity's default setting is make it somebody else's problem, regardless of what century they're living in or how much they claim to have. Progressed. Fry embodying the 20th century spirit in the year 3000 shows that spirit never actually left. It just went dormant until circumstances made short-term thinking attractive again. Let's shift over to the next theory. In episode Hell is Other Robots, Bender gets addicted to electricity called jacking on, joins the Temple of Robotology to get clean, then relapses into sin and gets literally dragged to robot hell by the actual robot devil, who tortures him with elaborate musical numbers customized to his specific crimes. Robot Hell exists as a physical location beneath Reckless Ted's Funland in New Jersey, naturally, staffed by Hellbots who enforce eternal damnation according to religious doctrine. The robot devil knows every sin Bender committed, has prepared ironic punishments for each one, and operates under the Fairness in Hell Act of 2275, which requires fiddle contests for soul retrieval. This means robot religion has genuine metaphysical weight in the Futurama universe. 2-3. Robots possess actual souls that face real supernatural judgment after death, or during life, if you break your vows. The Temple of Robotology worships a legitimate cosmic order where the robot devil actively enforces moral laws through eternal torture. Robots mimicking human religious behavior accidentally created or tapped into actual divine reality, proving that either consciousness automatically generates metaphysical consequences or the universe runs on rules. Nobody understands where belief becomes truth through sheer repetition. Bender starts the episode at a Beastie Boys concert. The Beastie Boys are heads in jars now, dancing through interpretive dancers, holding their containers. His friend Fender from high school introduces him to jacking on, plugging directly into electrical sources to get high. Bender experiences psychedelic hallucinations where he dances with electric eels and eats electrons off molecules while insisting he doesn't have an addictive personality. Within minutes, he's smoking cigars, drinking beer, and jacking on simultaneously. His addiction escalates rapidly. He shows up to work with blue, electrified eyes, yelling at everyone to get off his back. He nearly kills the crew by steering the ship into the Coalsack Nebula to absorb electricity, standing on top of the ship screaming, "Come on, universe, you big, mostly empty wuss. Give me all the juice you got." Lightning strikes him repeatedly until his legs melt and he gets welded to the ship's hull. The intervention comes from his friends. Leela points out they didn't mind his drinking, kleptomania, or pornography ring. Zoidberg notes, "That's why we loved you, but the electricity abuse crossed the line by nearly killing everyone." Fry delivers the emotional blow, "You made me ashamed to be your friend. Just like when my friend Richie swore he wasn't taking drugs, and then he sold me my mom's VCR, and then later I found out he was taking drugs." Bender walks out, declaring himself a lost cause. He passes Sparky's Den, his usual jacking spot, and hears organ music from the Temple of Robotology across the street. He tries jacking on one final time from the temple's neon sign, shorts it out, and breaks down crying. "What am I doing? What have I become?" He looks through the roof and sees the preacher bot, giving a sermon about the robot devil, downloading sinners straight to robot hell. The glass roof gives way, and Bender crashes into the temple, landing at the preacher bot's feet. "Me," he says weakly when asked who will stand up and be saved. The baptism ceremony involves pressing any key to continue, getting dunked in high-viscosity baptismal oil, and having the Robotology symbol, a resistor, welded to his chest. Bender becomes insufferably pious. He takes everyone to dinner at Elzar's Fine Cuisine and refuses wine as poison, recites robot grace in binary code for so long everyone gives up waiting, forces hugs on everyone, and sticks religious symbols on the Planet Express ship. The crew plots to reacquaint him with a little thing called sleaze by taking him to Atlantic City, where they fake a delivery, try tempting him with exotic dancing at Power Strip. Those girls don't wear cases, you can see their bare circuits, stolen purses, and Hookerbot 5000. Bender resists until he cracks, ripping off his Robotology symbol and partying with strippers. That night at the Trump Trapezoid Hotel, Bender entertains 3 fembots in his jacuzzi, pretending to be a Hollywood director holding auditions. Someone knocks on his door. "I'm trying to score here. Can't you read the Do Not Disturb sign?" A red glow comes from the corridor. A pitchfork appears, and Bender gets knocked unconscious, then dragged to robot hell. The next morning, Fry and Leela find scorch marks where Bender fell. Nibbler catches the scent of vodka and motor oil, leading them to Reckless Ted's Funland, an abandoned amusement park shut down after people caught salmonella from the flume ride. They find the Inferno ride with Bender's Robotology symbol, press it, and a crazy mirror slides up, revealing robot hell. Who would have thought hell would really exist? And that it would be in New Jersey, Leela exclaims. A trapdoor opens and they fall down a twisting fun slide. The robot devil greets them with an elaborate musical torture sequence. "We know all your sins, Bender. And for each one, we've prepared an agonizing and ironic punishment. Level 1 punishes cigars, Level 2 handles gambling and cheating, Level 5 involves the Beastie Boys scratching his hard drive for selling bootleg tapes. The Robot Devil sings about fencing diamonds, fixing cockfights, and publishing indecent magazines while Bender protests, "Don't blame me, blame my upbringing." The whole thing ends with fireworks because apparently Robot Hell has production values. When Fry and Leela arrive, the Robot Devil explains the Fairness in Hell Act of 2275 requires a fiddle contest for soul retrieval. Leela plays terribly, switches to drum solo mode, beats the Robot Devil with the violin, and they escape while being chased by Hellbots and flying Bugbots. A laser ring catches on Bender's antenna, forming a halo as they fly out through a closing hole. The theological implications break every understanding of artificial intelligence and consciousness. Robot Hell exists as a physical location, accessible through New Jersey amusement parks. The Robot Devil possesses detailed records of every sin Bender committed, including bootlegging CDs and publishing indecent magazines. These punishments follow religious doctrine established by the Temple of Robotology, meaning robot theology accurately describes metaphysical reality. When Bender joined Robotology and agreed to its terms, he bound his soul to actual supernatural consequences. The Fairness in Hell Act proves Robot Hell operates under legal frameworks that acknowledge souls as property subject to contracts and contests. This means robots possess something beyond programming, an essence that persists after death and faces judgment according to moral standards enforced by supernatural entities. The existence of the Robot Devil raises questions about robot metaphysics that nobody in the 31st century seems interested in exploring. Did robots create religious structures that somehow manifested actual divine beings through collective belief? Does consciousness automatically generate metaphysical weight regardless of whether that consciousness runs on neurons or circuits? The Robot Devil operates with full knowledge of Bender's crimes and genuine authority to enforce eternal torture, suggesting either robots accidentally created real supernatural infrastructure through mimicking human religion, or the universe has inherent rules where sufficiently complex information patterns, souls, face judgment regardless of their substrate. Churches building replicas of hell accidentally created actual hell. Prayers to non-existent robot deities somehow summoned real robot deities. The metaphysical architecture of the universe responds to belief itself rather than requiring any particular origin story or creator. Human religions in the Futurama universe might work the same way. Human hell could be as real and accessible as robot hell, staffed by the actual devil-running musical torture sequences beneath abandoned theme parks. The show treats robot hell as completely legitimate, while never confirming whether human religious claims have similar weight, but the precedent suggests belief creates reality through mechanisms nobody understands. Robots built temples mimicking human worship and accidentally constructed actual metaphysical judgment systems. The Robot Devil exists, enforces doctrine, maintains hell, and operates under legal frameworks requiring fiddle contests. Bender's soul is real enough to be stolen, tortured, and rescued. The 31st century discovered that consciousness plus religion equals actual supernatural consequences, and everyone just accepted this, without investigating whether consciousness itself generates divine frameworks or whether divine frameworks exist independently, waiting for conscious beings to discover them through worship. Now we turn to the next theory. In episode A Flight to Remember, Zap Brannigan gets appointed honorary captain of the Titanic's maiden voyage despite having zero qualifications for civilian maritime command, immediately diverts the luxury cruise through a deadly comet field because the preset course is for schoolgirls, then steers directly into a black hole before abandoning ship and making Kif captain so he won't have to go down with it. Mayor Poppenmeyer introduces him as a man who single-handedly defeated the retiree people of the Assisted Living Nebula, like this is an impressive military achievement. Earlier episodes revealed his other great victory involved defeating killbots by sending wave after wave of his own men at them until the robots hit their preset kill limit and shut down. Despite catastrophic incompetence that gets people killed, Zap remains the Democratic Order of Planet's most decorated captain, gets invited to prestigious events, and faces zero consequences for his disasters. The dupe doesn't keep Zap employed because he's good at his job, they keep him because he's good at looking like he's good at his job. He's charismatic, confident, and generates positive headlines. In a military organization more concerned with public perception than actual competence, Zap Brannigan is the perfect officer, a propaganda asset who can spin any catastrophe into a triumph. The episode opens with the crew returning from Cannibalon, looking roughed up and declaring it the worst delivery ever. Farnsworth announces they've earned a company vacation aboard the Titanic, the largest, most luxurious space cruise ship ever built. Ominous music plays while everyone stares at the brochure, completely unaware that naming a ship Titanic might be tempting fate. At South Street Spaceport, Mayor Poppenmeyer gives Zap the honorary captain position for the maiden voyage. Zap looks at the ship and declares, "She's a beautiful ship, all right. Shapely, seductive. I'm gonna fly her brains out." He christens it by smashing Leonardo DiCaprio's head in a jar against the hull. DiCaprio's head bounces away, which feels unnecessarily cruel to a celebrity who already died on the original Titanic. Zap personally welcomes passengers, spots Leela, and immediately tries hitting on her. She claims Fry is her fiancé to escape, creating the fake relationship that drives half the episode's plot. Once aboard, Zap demonstrates his command philosophy. He stands in the wheel room and announces he's feeling the captain's itch. Kif assumes this means adventure rather than a medical condition requiring powder. Zap declares the preset course is for schoolgirls and draws a squiggly new route directly through a comet swarm. Comets, the icebergs of the sky. By jackknifing from one to the next at breakneck speed, we might just get some kind of gravity boost or something. The phrase, "or something," doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Kif protests that this is a leisure cruise with a preset route from the travel agency. Zap orders, "Divert power from the shields, full speed ahead," because apparently protective shields are just slowing them down. His entire command strategy involves making things sound dramatic while having zero understanding of physics, navigation, or basic safety protocols. He's playing with thousands of lives like they're pieces in a game he doesn't know the rules to. The ship survives the comets, but Zap immediately creates a new crisis. Kif tries warning him about the somewhat more suicidal than initially hoped course correction. Zap responds by insulting Kif's cowardice and stupidity, then announces they'll simply set a new course for that empty region over there, near that blackish, hole-ish thing. He points at an actual black hole and grins like he's solved all their problems. Kif's jaw drops. The ship starts getting pulled toward the black hole, and Zap's response is to declare they're doomed from the start and announce the captain will go down with his ship. When Kif calls this surprisingly noble, Zap rips off his captain's patch, pins it on Kif, declares, "As of now, you're in command. Congratulations, Captain," and flies away in an escape pod. He passed off responsibility at the last possible second, ensuring Kif takes the blame for Zap's decisions, while Zap escapes consequences entirely. The Titanic tears in half, passengers panic, and the crew races toward escape pods. Bender goes back for the Countess de la Roca, a wealthy robot he fell in love with, saves her from a fire, but she gets sucked into the black hole while Bender escapes. The tragedy of Bender losing his love interest overshadows the fact that Zap caused this entire disaster through deliberate recklessness, abandoned his post, and will face zero consequences. The episode ends with the escape pod flying away while Bender mourns the Countess. Nobody mentions court-martialing Zap. Nobody discusses his criminal negligence. The dupe doesn't strip his rank or investigate why their most decorated captain endangered a civilian cruise ship then fled. Zap presumably returns to active duty, continues being celebrated as a hero, and remains available for future catastrophes. This pattern repeats throughout the series. In Love's Labors Lost in Space, Fry mentions hearing about Zap single-handedly defeating a horde of rampaging somethings in the something-something system. When Zap explains the Killbot strategy, he proudly describes sending wave after wave of his own men at the enemy until the robots reach their preset kill limit and shut down. "Kif, show them the medal I won," he says, pointing to the medal on his uniform. He got decorated for a strategy that involved sacrificing countless soldiers to exploit an enemy's programming limitation. Any competent commander would call this a war crime. The dupe gave him a medal. In Brannigan, Begin Again, Zap destroys dupe headquarters and gets court-martialed, but quickly returns to command. In Into the Wild Green Yonder, he's leading military operations again. No amount of catastrophic failure permanently removes him from power. The reason becomes clear when you look at what Zap offers the dupe. He's handsome in a grotesque sort of way, confident to the point of delusion, and speaks in dramatic military cliches that sound impressive to civilians. In the game of chess, you can never let your adversary see your pieces, he tells Kif while discussing battle strategy, which makes zero sense but sounds profound. He quotes Sun Tzu's classic text The Art of War, or my own masterwork, Zap Brannigan's Big Book of War, like he's contributed meaningfully to military theory. He wrote a book. He has medals. He uses words like tactical dogfight and suicidally dangerous that make boring space missions sound like heroic adventures. The dupe needs officers who can sell wars to the public, who can make military spending look justified, who can turn disasters into victories through sheer charisma and selective memory. Competent military leadership requires admitting mistakes, learning from failures, and prioritizing soldier safety over personal glory. Those qualities don't generate good headlines or inspire recruitment. Zap's incompetence actually makes him more valuable as a propaganda asset because he genuinely believes his own hype. He actually thinks steering a civilian cruise ship through comets shows bold leadership. He actually believes sending soldiers to their deaths until enemies run out of ammunition demonstrates tactical brilliance. His delusion is authentic, which makes him a perfect spokesperson for military operations that need to look heroic rather than be effective. The dupe discovered that modern warfare runs on public support, and public support runs on having memorable characters who embody confidence regardless of competence. This explains why Zap never faces real consequences. Court-martialing him means admitting the dupe's most decorated captain is incompetent, which raises questions about how he got decorated in the first place, which threatens the credibility of the entire military hierarchy. Easier to quietly clean up his messes, blame subordinates like Kif, and keep trotting him out for publicity events. Mayor Poppenmeyer appoints him honorary captain of the Titanic, not because Zap knows anything about cruise ships, he doesn't, but because having a celebrity military figure at the christening generates positive press coverage. The maiden voyage was always about optics over safety, which explains why they named it Titanic, despite humanity having extremely recent memory of what happened to the last ship with that name. Marketing departments won the argument over engineering departments. Propaganda considerations trumped safety concerns, and Zap Brannigan is what you get when an entire society values charisma over competence in positions of life and death responsibility. Moving ahead to the next theory, if you want more videos like these, subscribe to our channel. In episode Mars University, Gunter the monkey receives artificial superintelligence from an electronium hat tech that somehow uses sunspots to produce cognitive radiation, which sounds like something a stoner came up with, and immediately discovers that genius-level intelligence is a curse. At full capacity, he excels academically, impresses girls, and speaks multiple languages, while being absolutely miserable. He's embarrassed when his monkey parents throw feces at the dean during Parents' Weekend. The academic version of finding out your dad's Twitter account feels crushing pressure to perform, and spirals into a depression that ends with him dangling from a vine contemplating suicide. Why bother? I've got nothing to live for. I was miserable as a genius, and as a monkey. I was so dumb, I tried to wear a hat on my butt. The waterfall breaks his hat so it operates at half capacity, and Gunter immediately declares, I actually feel sort of happy, and transfers to business school. Farnsworth screams, no, in horror like Gunter just announced he's joining a pyramid scheme. Here's the thing though, the Futurama universe runs on a twisted rule where intelligence and happiness exist in inverse proportion. The smarter you are, the more you suffer. Every genius in the show is suicidal, evil, or so detached from normal life they've lost all connection to meaning or joy. Meanwhile, the dumbest character literally saves the universe through stupidity. It's like the writers looked at every knowledge is power motivational poster and went, yeah, actually power is misery. The episode opens with Farnsworth shipping a mysterious crate to Mars University containing his little experiment that may well win me the Nobel Prize. Spoiler, the Nobel Prize in this scenario is basically, congratulations on torturing a monkey into consciousness. Fry kicks the crate, something inside starts growling, and Farnsworth pulls out a tranquilizer gun because apparently that's a normal thing professors just carry around. They arrive at Mars University, where Wong Library has the largest collection of literature in the Western universe. The building is completely empty, except for 2 discs labeled fiction and nonfiction on a single table. All of human literature condensed to 2 CDs. The Kindle dystopia we were warned about has arrived. Fry discovers his roommate is Gunter, who now wears the intelligence hat and speaks with the kind of pretentious sarcasm you'd expect from someone who just discovered they have opinions about Proust. "I'd rather live in a crate than share a room with this dork," Gunter announces. When Fry offers him a banana, Gunter responds, "I prefer banana-flavored energy bars made from tofu," which is exactly the kind of insufferable thing smart people say to make everyone hate them. In their 20th century history class, Gunter correctly identifies the television while Fry guesses light bright and gets electrocuted by the teacher. Mars University's discipline system is apparently just tasering students, which honestly tracks. Intelligence gets Gunter academic success and romantic attention at the cost of everything that made him an actual monkey instead of a furry grad student doing a very committed bit. The breaking point comes at Parents' Weekend, when Farnsworth unveils Gunter's biological parents, two regular monkeys in a cage who immediately start flinging poop at the dean. The second Fry releases them. "This is so humiliating," Gunter moans, which is the eternal cry of every first-generation college student whose parents show up to campus and immediately embarrass them by existing. Fry finds him later in the dark, surrounded by banana skins, crying while eating bananas like someone stress-eating ice cream after a breakup. "I try so hard to fit in, but seeing my parents act like that made me realize I'm just a primitive beast," he sobs. Leela tries the whole "you've got the hat" pep talk, and Gunter reveals the truth. "Sure, it looks cool and it makes me smart, but it doesn't make me happy. Even the crying is artificial. They can't," he explains about regular monkeys. "It's all the hat." Intelligence gave him the capacity to suffer without giving him anything worth having, like getting a PhD and being sad. During the next exam, Gunter stares out the window at the jungle, looks back at Farnsworth's proud face, and realizes he's trapped in an academic pressure cooker designed by someone who values intellectual achievement over, happiness. He's drawn bananas all over his test paper, the academic equivalent of writing, "I quit," in the margins of your dissertation. He snaps, throws off his hat, screams, makes monkey noises, and jumps through the window in what has to be the most dramatic dropout in academic history. Farnsworth's response to his experiment's psychological breakdown? "Why didn't I break his legs?" The professor literally wishes he'd physically crippled Gunter to prevent escape, which really says everything about how scientists in Futurama view intelligence as inherently superior regardless of the suffering it causes. They track Gunter to the jungle to let him choose between the hat and a banana. Before he can decide, the robot fraternity's raft-long story, involving Bender teaching nerdy robots how to party, accidentally sweeps everyone into a river toward a waterfall. They grab onto a log, and Gunter has to save them, which he does using vines and physics after trying to wear the banana and eat the hat first. The visual of a monkey trying to consume a metal hat is criminally underappreciated. The rescue works, the vine snaps, Gunter plummets down the waterfall, and the fall damages the hat so it works at only half capacity. And here's where it gets good. I like it like this. I actually feel sort of happy. Farnsworth offers to fix it, and Gunter refuses. When I had that, there was too much pressure to use it. All I want out of life is to be a monkey of moderate intelligence who wears a suit. That's why I've decided to transfer to business school. Farnsworth screams no, because from his perspective, choosing moderate intelligence is worse than death. Gunter discovered the optimal cognitive level, enough intelligence to function in society without the crippling self-awareness and pressure that genius brings. Business school represents the perfect compromise, smart enough to succeed, dumb enough to be happy. The closing subtitle reveals Gwenter got his MBA and became president of the Fox network, which is either a brilliant joke about business school or a savage burn on network executives. Why not both? This pattern repeats throughout Futurama with stunning consistency. Professor Farnsworth's catchphrase is, "I don't want to live on this planet anymore." The brain spawn are hyper-intelligent beings whose only goal is destroying all thought in the universe because consciousness itself is suffering and they want to eliminate it as mercy. Basically, Buddhism taken to its logical extreme by angry floating brains. Mom runs MomCorp with ruthless brilliance and emotional isolation. The robot devil uses genius for elaborate torture. Wernstrom nurses century-long grudges. Every genius is isolated, miserable, or actively trying to destroy things. Meanwhile, Fry, the show's dumbest character, literally saves the universe because the brain spawn can't detect him. He lacks the delta brainwave. He became his own grandfather in Roswell That Ends Well, the time travel sex episode we all pretend makes sense. His stupidity makes him immune to psychic attacks from the most intelligent beings in existence. When the fate of all thought hangs in the balance, humanity's survival depends on someone too dumb to be detected by hyper-intelligence. The show explicitly rewards stupidity with cosmic importance, while punishing intelligence with misery or villainy. Gunter choosing business school makes perfect sense. An MBA won't cure cancer. It also won't leave you sobbing in the dark, surrounded by banana peels, unable to connect with either your biological family or your adopted species. That's the sweet spot. Smart enough to wear a suit and succeed professionally, dumb enough to actually feel sort of happy. In a universe where intelligence and suffering increase in lockstep, where genius is a curse with good PR, and where the smartest beings alive spend their time trying to destroy all thought, Gunter found the only winning move. Being just smart enough to get by, and just dumb enough to enjoy it. Alright, on to our next theory. In episode Fry in the Slurm Factory, Slurms Mackenzie is the original party worm who serves as Slurm's mascot, and his job description is party all night, every night, or he's fired. He's exhausted, has bloodshot eyes hidden behind shades, and confesses to the crew, "I'm partied out. All I want is to stay home and rent videos and watch them with a few friends." Is that so much to ask? Yes, apparently, because Bender immediately vetoes this. No can do Slurms. His bottle cap contract legally obligates him to party. When the Slurm Queen chases them through collapsing tunnels, Slurm sacrifices himself by dancing so hard the cave collapses, crushing him under rocks while he shouts, "Party on, contest winners. Party on." He dies performing his mascot duties while literally begging for a break moments earlier. The episode reveals fame and success in Futurama means being worked to death while maintaining a cheerful facade. Where your persona becomes a prison, you perform until it kills you. Celebrity status is a death sentence disguised as achievement. Your public image replaces your actual personality. You can never stop performing it. The algorithm demands content. And when you finally break character, the entire infrastructure collapses on top of you, literally, in Slurm's case. The episode opens with Fry and Bender watching a Slurm commercial where Slurm surfs with babes while announcing a contest to party with him at the Slurm Factory. Who says there are no more heroes? Bender declares, which is what people say about celebrities they've parasocially attached to while knowing absolutely nothing about their actual lives. Fry becomes obsessed with finding the winning bottle cap, uses the F-ray, an X-ray that sees through anything, to check 90,000 cans, and finally wins by choking on the cap. They arrive at the Slurm Factory on planet Wormalon, where Glurmo, the tour guide, introduces my good friend, Slurms Mackenzie. Slurms appears with his catchphrase, "Wimmy wham wham wazzle," but Glurmo immediately clarifies the relationship. He'd better be, that's what we pay him for. Right, Slurms? Slurms cringes and waves his arms around. In fact, Slurms has to party all night, every night, or he's fired. Glurmo announces this like it's a fun fact rather than a description of employment torture. Slurms droops over the second they leave. "I'ma go lie down." His entire existence is performance. The party worm persona is a suit he can never take off, because worms don't wear suits. They are the suit. When he reappears later to help them escape from the Slurm Queen, he begs to be rescued. "I want you to take me with you." Fry asks the obvious question, "Say what?" And Slurms explains he's partied out and just wants the life of a normal person who rents videos with a few friends. This is his dream scenario, being a regular guy who occasionally watches movies. The bar for happiness has fallen so low it's doing limbo in the basement. Bender pulls out the bottle cap like a legal contract. It says on this bottle cap you have to party with us. Slurms reluctantly agrees to party when they reach Earth, adding, "Please don't invite too many people. I want to keep it small," which is the saddest thing anyone has ever said while contractually obligated to party. The cave-in forces his final performance. "Go on without me, I'll hold her off," he tells them, taking off his shades to reveal bloodshot eyes, the physical evidence of years performing happiness. "I'm so tired of partying, so very tired. I'll save you the only way I know how, by partying." His babes Dixie and Trixie have served him for 40 years. 40 years of mandatory partying. He sends them away declaring there'll be other parties for you, and dances alone while the tunnel collapses. Bender salutes, "Party on, Slurms." Slurm's last words before a rock crushes him, "Party on, contest winners, party on." He dies mid-catchphrase, performing his persona until his literal final breath. The company built a celebrity whose entire value comes from seeming happy and energetic, then worked him 40 years straight until he died maintaining that illusion. This is what happens when your job is be the fun guy and employment depends on never admitting you're exhausted. This pattern repeats throughout Futurama with brutal consistency. Calculon is the galaxy's greatest actor, he claims, stars in soap opera All My Circuits, and seems utterly miserable despite success. In Calculon 2.0, he literally kills himself on stage to win an acting award because validation from critics matters more than living. He comes back as a robot zombie, discovers fame means nothing, and chooses death again. His entire existence is performance for approval he never receives. The soap opera star who has everything discovers everything is nothing because celebrity is just public perception management with no actual substance beneath it. The heads in jars are even worse. Leonard Nimoy, Lucy Liu, Richard Nixon, the Beastie Boys, 2-. Famous people preserved in jars so they can never stop being famous. They're trapped performing their public personas forever because society values their celebrity more than their humanity. The Beastie Boys keep touring as heads in jars 1,000 years after their bodies died. Leonard Nimoy does conventions. Richard Nixon runs for president and wins somehow. Death doesn't free you from celebrity in the 31st century. It just removes the inconvenience of having a body. You become your public image permanently. The heads represent the logical conclusion of fame. Your persona outlives you, replaces you, and continues performing after you're gone. Bender faces this repeatedly when he becomes famous. In Raging Bender, he becomes ultimate robot fighting champion and the fame nearly destroys him, literally. He gets beaten to pieces by the masked unit. In Bendin in the Wind, he becomes a folk singer named Bender Rodriguez, his actual name, and the persona consumes him until his amplifier breaks. Every time Bender achieves celebrity status, the fame creates pressures that threaten his existence. Celebrity Bender is always worse than regular Bender, because maintaining a public image requires suppressing everything authentic about yourself. Even Fry faces this. In The Luck of the Fryish, his brother Yancey takes his name and identity, becomes Philip J. Fry, achieves everything the original Fry dreamed of: astronaut, success, respect. And the weight of living up to that stolen persona presumably crushed him. The clover gave him luck, the name gave him an identity to perform, and maintaining Philip J. Fry, successful person, for an entire lifetime while raising a son named Philip J. Fry II means spending every day performing someone else's dreams. Identity theft as slow-motion suicide. Slurms, Mackenzie wanted to rent videos with friends. Instead, he spent 40 years partying on command, maintained a cheerful persona while exhausted and bloodshot, and died dancing because that's what the bottle cap contract required. His sacrifice saved the crew. His final words were his catchphrase, and somewhere in the 31st century, there's probably a holographic Slurms. Mackenzie still partying in commercials because the persona never dies even after the person is crushed by rocks. Fame means performing happiness until performance kills you. And then your image keeps performing after you're dead because corporations own your likeness forever, and society values the illusion more than the person who generated it. Party on, indeed. Let's get into the next theory. In episode I Second That Emotion, Bender flushes Nibbler down the toilet because the pet ate his birthday cake, a 5-tier masterpiece with a little Bender ornament on top. The narcissism is strong. Leela cries, Bender laughs at a news report about 54,000 people dying in a rocket crash, and Farnsworth decides to solve this with science. He hammers an empathy chip into Bender's head that transmits Leela's emotions directly to him in real time. The chip has tunable, emotional frequencies for different people. Farnsworth accidentally tunes it to Zoidberg first. Bender craves mackerel heads. Then Amy worried about intelligence, relieved about cuteness, then finally, Leela. Bender immediately feels her sadness, her anger, her jealousy. When Amy dances with a guy at the bar, her loneliness while eating ice cream. The emotions transmit wirelessly across the city, like some kind of feelings podcast Bender can't unsubscribe from. The episode treats emotions as quantifiable data that can be measured, transmitted, amplified, and theoretically hacked or manipulated. In the Futurama universe, consciousness is just software running on meat, hardware, or metal hardware for robots, and feelings are packets of information traveling through space, waiting to be intercepted, copied, or weaponized. Your emotions have a frequency. Someone could tune into that frequency. welcome to the privacy nightmare. The episode opens with Bender getting sliced by an electric can opener. It killed his father, apparently, and now it's coming for him. Nibbler eats his food. Leela makes Bender pet him to apologize. Nibbler bites Bender's shiny metal ass and chips a fang. At the vet, they discover Nibbler is 5 years old by counting rings in his tooth like a tree, which the vet mentions while still woozy from a gazelle kick that morning. Being a vet in the 31st century involves getting attacked by exotic animals approximately 6 times per shift. They throw Nibbler a birthday party where everyone fawns over him doing basic activities like holding a spoon or wearing a hat. Bender tries desperately to get attention by spinning his head like a globetrotter, dancing around whistling Sweet Georgia Brown, but nobody cares because Nibbler exists. Leela asks him to bake a cake. He does. Nibbler eats it, and Bender flushes him down the toilet mid-birthday party. Leela sobs at the toilet funeral where Farnsworth eulogizes. And so we say goodbye to our beloved pet Nibbler, who's gone to a place where I too hope one day to go. The toilet. Hermes places a lily in the bowl. Fry flushes it, and Leela wishes Bender could feel exactly what she feels. Farnsworth declares this can be arranged through the miracle of science. Every mad scientist's favorite phrase before crossing lines, man was clearly meant to leave alone. They pin Bender to a table. Farnsworth unscrews his head and hammers the empathy chip in while Bender screams. The hammering sounds like Home Improvement gone wrong. Ooh, ow, son of a... Careful with that. Ow. Professor, ow. Once installed, Farnsworth tunes the chip with a screwdriver, like adjusting a radio until he finds Leela's emotional frequency. The implications hit immediately. Bender experiences Leela's emotions in real time across any distance. When Leela goes out with Amy to Ozorgnax's pub, Bender sits at home crying, "I miss Nibbler," even though he definitely doesn't. Hell no, it's Leela's stupid feelings. Why can't she just drink herself happy like a normal person? When Amy dances closely with a Hispanic guy named Armando, Leela feels jealous and Bender suddenly stands up pointing at Fry. "You think you're so hot. The only reason you get all the guys is because you dress like a tramp." He slaps Fry, who cries, "They're just responding to my personality," which is a fascinating defense. When Amy leaves with Armando for coffee in his back seat, Leela puts on theatrical happiness and Bender goes to eat ice cream while sobbing. The chip transmits everything: sadness, anger, jealousy, loneliness, theatrical fake happiness. Emotions become data packets traveling through space to an unwilling receiver. This means emotions have measurable frequencies. Different people broadcast on different channels. The chip can be tuned precisely to isolate one person's emotional output from all the noise. You could theoretically build an emotion scanner that reads everyone nearby, emotional surveillance. You could amplify feelings beyond normal capacity, which the chip does. It runs at triple capacity by the end. You could dampen them. You could record emotional states and play them back later, emotional deepfakes. You could broadcast fake emotions to manipulate someone. If you can receive, you can transmit. The technology exists, it works flawlessly, and nobody questions the privacy implications because Farnsworth just wanted to teach Bender a lesson about empathy using non-consensual brain modification, which is very on brand for him. Throughout the series, this pattern repeats with increasing horror. Robots have specific circuits that can be activated remotely. When Zap Brannigan declares all robots will have their patriotism circuits activated, Bender's antenna flashes red and he immediately stands up declaring it is every robot's duty to give his life for the good of humanity. Remote emotional manipulation via wireless signal. Someone with a remote control can force robots to feel patriotism, overriding their actual preferences. That's mind control with extra steps, the extra steps being we installed the mind control hardware at the factory. The robot devil can swap body parts and they work perfectly with new owners. In The Devil's Hands Are Idle Playthings, Fry trades hands with the robot devil and immediately gains musical talent because skill is stored in hardware. Consciousness and ability transfer between bodies like swapping hard drives. Memories can be erased. Bender gets his memory wiped multiple times. Copied robots can back themselves up. Or, implanted fake memories are a thing. In The Why of Fry, the Niblonians scan Fry's brain to check his thoughts. Consciousness itself can be transferred. No, now, Bender's personality gets copied. The professor swaps bodies with himself from another universe. Heads in jars maintain full consciousness separated from bodies. Every aspect of personhood, UZ, memories, emotions, skills, consciousness, AGE, is treated as data that can be manipulated, copied, transmitted, or deleted. Bender flushes himself down the toilet piece by piece to rescue Nibbler. His right arm flushes itself last after Bender's already gone, which is commitment. Leela and Fry follow him into the sewers where they discover mutants, hideous people with extra features living underground because surface dwellers exiled them. The mutants explain everything flushed ends up down there. Their aquarium, their library, just crumpled porno, and Ayn Rand. Their church, they worship an unexploded nuclear bomb, but nobody's that observant. It's mainly a Christmas and Easter thing. They search for Nibbler, who's been eating crocodiles and gained a reputation as El Chupanibre, the dreaded creature from legend. The actual El Chupanibre shows up, a huge green monster. Bender saves Nibbler after Leela stops caring about him, following Bender's advice to think only of designer boots and fancy spas, and they return to the surface. Farnsworth removes the chip and reveals it burned out. Wait? Actually, it ran at triple capacity, and Bender still barely felt anything. The chip amplified Leela's emotions 3 times beyond normal levels, and Bender could barely register them because robots experience feelings at such different intensity than humans. This means emotions can be quantified on a scale. Leela broadcasts at intensity X, the chip amplified to 3 times X, and Bender needed that much just to feel baseline empathy. You could theoretically measure emotional intensity for everyone, create profiles, identify people by their emotional signatures, like fingerprints, accept feelings. Insurance companies would love this. Emotional risk assessment. Advertisers would weaponize it, targeted ads based on current emotional state. Governments would mandate it, track emotional responses to identify threats. The technology exists, works perfectly, and nobody discusses regulation because Farnsworth built it in an afternoon using a hammer. Your feelings have a frequency. Someone tuned a chip to Leela's emotional broadcast, and Bender received it across the city in real time. Consciousness is software, emotions are data packets, and privacy died the moment someone realized you could install a receiver and listen to feelings like their radio stations. Welcome to the future where your inner life is just another signal waiting to be intercepted. Here comes the next theory. In episode Brannigan, Begin Again, Zap Brannigan accidentally destroys Dupe headquarters while trying to cut a ribbon from his ship. He fires a laser that cuts the ribbon, then the statue, then the entire space station explodes. He gets court-martialed, stripped of rank, and blamed for the disaster. Kif tries pointing out the obvious problems with Zap's plan beforehand. "Sir, I don't think that's wise." And Zap responds, "Kif, if there's one thing I don't need, it's your 'I don't think that's wise' attitude before pressing the fire button and destroying a $400 billion facility." Later in the episode, Zap becomes Planet Express captain through a mutiny, nearly crashes the ship into Neutral Planet as part of a plan to kill Fry and Bender while he escapes in the only spacesuit. Leela saves everyone by loading dark matter into the left engine, and Zap testifies at his reinstatement hearing with what the judge describes as a rambling story of magic and heroism, where he takes credit for everything. Leela confirms his lies just to get him off the Planet Express payroll. He gets reinstated as Dupe captain despite accomplishing absolutely nothing except nearly killing multiple crews. The episode reveals that military and political success has zero connection to actual competence in HEO. It's entirely about controlling the narrative, shameless self-promotion, and taking credit for other people's work. Zap fails upward through the ranks by lying so confidently about his disasters that they become victories in the official record. He's the embodiment of every middle manager who got promoted for PowerPoint skills, while everyone who actually does work stays at their current position forever. The episode opens with the crew playing holographic chess, where Fry's knight stabs Bender's bishop after getting beaten with a crook. The pieces fight each other, which is honestly the only way to make chess interesting. They receive a mission to deliver ceremonial, oversized scissors to the ribbon-cutting ceremony at Dupe's new headquarters. Fry discovers the reception table has muffins. This thrills him more than seeing 1,000,000 aliens, which tracks. Glab, an amphibio-san, gives a speech welcoming everyone to the new headquarters located in orbit around the neutral planet. The neutral president responds to questions about this momentous occasion with, "I have no strong feelings one way or the other," which gets huge applause. The neutrals have committed to the bit so thoroughly they turned. apathy into a political ideology. Zap sees Leela with the scissors and immediately arrests her on suspicion of plotting to assassinate the Yarn people of Nibbler 4. Rock crushes scissors, but paper covers rock and scissors cut paper. Kif, we have a conundrum. He's supposed to cut the ribbon but decides to do it from his ship using the laser because walking down to cut a ribbon with scissors is apparently beneath him. Kif warns this is unwise. Zap delivers his catchphrase. Kif, if there's one thing I don't need, it's your I don't think that's wise attitude. He fires the laser, cuts the ribbon, keeps firing, cuts a huge statue of Glab in half, keeps firing, and the entire space station explodes. The reception area breaks off and hurtles into space with everyone screaming. Zap's response? Whoopsie daisy. He destroyed a $400 billion facility. 400 billion. And his reaction is the verbal equivalent of knocking over a coffee cup. This is a man whose relationship with consequences exists only in theory. At his court-martial, the prosecutor is a hyper chicken, a giant green chicken with tiny glasses and a strong southern accent who introduces himself as just a simple hyper chicken from a backwoods asteroid. The hyper chicken calls the entire jury as witnesses, asks if they saw who blew up headquarters. They all point at Zap. He asks if they'll vote to convict. They all say yes. The judge dismisses all charges anyway, in light of his years of service and the incompetence of this hillbilly prosecutor. Leela testifies that she watched the idiot blow up dupe headquarters with my own eye. Zap cross-examines her by establishing they had sex relevance, and that he's the very same Zap Brannigan who did not blow up dupe headquarters, factually incorrect. The jury finds him guilty anyway, and he gets stripped of rank. On his way out, he delivers a speech about how you can take away a man's title and his uniform, but you can never take away his integrity or his honor. Plus, it was mostly Kif's fault. The judge immediately strips Kif of rank too. Zap and Kif become homeless. There's a whole montage set to Harry Nilsson's Everybody's Talkin', where they wander the streets and Zap tries to pimp Kif to Hattie in a limo. There she wants Kif. Zap ushers him into the car for money, which is bleak. Eventually, they show up at Planet Express begging for work. Farnsworth hires them figuring, having a disgraced Starship captain on staff will distract people from our horrendous safety record. This is actually solid PR strategy. They deliver 40 pillows to Stumbos 4. A planet with such high gravity, you'll most likely be crushed under the weight of your own hair. Leela tells them to use the hover dolly and deliver one pillow at a time. They immediately ignore this and load all 40 pillows, each weighs 150 pounds in the high gravity. The dolly breaks. Leela makes them deliver by hand as punishment. While dragging pillows through high-gravity rain, which knocks Fry to the ground when he tries to drink it, Zap convinces Fry and Bender to mutiny by promising they can sit around the whole day drinking beer in their underpants if they make him captain. They handcuff Leela and throw her in the laundry room, which Zap declares will hereafter be referred to as the Brig. Zap immediately plans to attack Neutral Planet to become a hero again. His strategy? We will single-handedly attack our archenemy, the Neutral Planet. Once the neutral war machine lies in ruins, I'll be a hero again, and the dupe will reinstate me as captain. Kif points out this plan makes no sense. Zap reminds him he was court-martialed in disgrace because of Zap blaming him, but whatever. The plan escalates to crashing the entire ship into neutral headquarters, killing them in a hellish firestorm from which no living thing can escape, while Zap ejects in the only spacesuit. Fry asks, "Is this plan gonna kill us?" And Zap confirms, "Of course. What do you think I meant by loyalty?" This is actually a pretty good encapsulation of how military leadership views enlisted personnel. Fry and Bender immediately want Leela back as captain. She takes control, orders them to load dark matter into the left engine, saves the ship from crashing, and everyone survives. At the reinstatement hearing, Zap testifies with what Glab describes as a rambling story of magic and heroism, where he takes credit for everything. And so, when Captain Leela panicked, perhaps distracted by female troubles, my quick thinking allowed me to do whatever I did to save the day. Farnsworth whispers to Leela, if they don't take him back, we can keep him as captain, which convinces her to confirm all of Zap's lies. Your Honor, it's all true. My female incompetence, Zap's cat-like reflexes, the stuff that made no sense, all of it. He gets reinstated immediately based on testimony the judge literally describes as making no sense. Throughout the series, this pattern repeats. His victory over the killbots involved sending wave after wave of men to their deaths until the robots hit their preset kill limit. He got a medal for this. He defeated the retiree people of the assisted living nebula somehow. He carpet-bombed Eden 7 right before the ribbon-cutting ceremony. This is mentioned as an accomplishment. Every disaster becomes a victory through shameless revisionism and institutional refusal to hold him accountable. The dupe keeps promoting him because admitting their most decorated captain is incompetent means admitting the entire military hierarchy promotes based on confidence rather than competence, and that's too threatening to the system's legitimacy. Zap survives by controlling narratives. He destroyed headquarters? Blame Kif. Nearly killed everyone? Take credit for the rescue he had nothing to do with. The official record always matches his version because the alternative means questioning how he got promoted in the first place, which means questioning everyone who promoted him, which means acknowledging the whole system, rewards loud, confident liars over quiet, competent workers. He fails upward forever because admitting he fails means admitting the entire institutional structure is broken and powerful people have too much invested in pretending everything works fine. The medals stay pinned to his chest while everyone who actually does anything productive stays exactly where they are, which is apparently how the 31st century works, and the 21st, and probably all centuries, honestly. Now let's move on to the next theory. In episode Ahead in the Polls, Fry declares, "It's not like one vote ever made a difference," while refusing to register. Leela counters that the first robot president won by exactly one vote, John Quincy, adding machine, who struck a chord with the voters when he pledged to go on a killing spree, but like most politicians, promised more than he could deliver. At the episode's end, Richard Nixon wins the presidency of Earth by exactly one vote after attaching his head to a giant robot body. The reason he won by one vote? Fry forgot to vote, Leela forgot to vote. Oh crud. I knew there was something I meant to do today. And Bender couldn't vote because he's a convicted felon. 3 people's individual apathy plus one person's felony conviction directly installed a corrupt dictator who immediately starts destroying the White House while screaming, "Aru." The voter turnout was 6%, which Linda describes as the highest level in centuries, suggesting democracy died so long ago that 6% participation counts as enthusiastic civic engagement. The episode reveals that individual apathy creates collective disasters because everyone assumes their one action doesn't matter, when cascading consequences of millions of doesn't matter decisions shape literally everything. Every time someone thinks I'm just one person, what difference could I make? The universe writes down that person's name on a list titled Reasons Everything Fell Apart for future archaeologists to find. The episode opens with Fry and Bender watching the Scary Door Twilight Zone parody, where the last man on Earth finally has time to read books, his glasses break, he can still read large print, his eyes fall out, he knows Braille, his hands fall off, his tongue falls out, his head comes off, and he says, "Hey, look at that weird mirror." The show's commitment to destroying this man is genuinely impressive. Leela changes the channel to a presidential debate between Jack Johnson and John Jackson, who look identical because they are clones. Their debate highlights include "I'm against those things that everybody hates" versus "I agree with everything he just said," and disagreement over whether the 3-cent titanium tax goes too far or doesn't go too far enough. These are the candidates. Identical clones with zero policy differences, whose entire campaign is arguing about a 3-cent tax. Fry declares if he were registered, he'd send these clowns a message by staying home on election day and dressing up like a clown, which is the kind of protest that accomplishes nothing but makes you feel temporarily clever. They go to voter registration, where various third parties recruit. The Brain Slug Party favors unreasonably huge subsidies to the Brain Slug planet, and when asked what they'll do for the working man, responds, "Attach brain slugs to them." The Voter Apathy Party has a guy at a booth who rejects Fry for being too excited, accepts him when he says "screw it," then kicks him out when he gets excited again. The existence of a Voter Apathy Party is perfect. Bark, they've organized around not organizing, created infrastructure for not caring, and probably hold meetings about not holding meetings. Fry registers with them, maybe, the scene is unclear, because apathy. Meanwhile, a titanium mine collapses on Saturn's moon Titan, trapping 1,000 robot workers who will be dead within 300 years, unless rescued. The mine spokesman announces, "The plan is basically to pave over the area and get on with our lives," which tanks titanium supply and spikes prices. Bender realizes his body is 40% titanium and immediately sells it to a pawn shop for cash. This single decision, Bender choosing quick money over long-term planning, directly enables Nixon's eventual presidency, proving that personal financial desperation creates political catastrophe. This also applies to the 21st century, but we're not supposed to talk about that. Bender lives the high life as just ahead, gambling, bowling. Fry bowls his head down the lane for a strike, driving a tiny car, hanging out with celebrity heads at the Head Museum. He meets the US presidents who live on sturdy shelves with good security. Richard Nixon mentions missing his body. Flabby, pasty-skinned, riddled with phlebitis. A good Republican body. God, I loved it. He tells Bender being a head is a sad and lonely life, and Bender realizes he misses his body. He tries buying it back from the pawn shop, but it's been sold to Richard Nixon, who announces his candidacy for president and appears at a press conference in Bender's body wearing a red tie. Nixon explains the Constitution says nobody can be elected president more than twice, but as you can plainly see, I've got a shiny new body. He dances. He plays electric guitar. He kisses babies, which he stores in the chest cabinet. His campaign manager explains, "Your body stayed on message." And that message is, "Look at my shiny new body. The robots ate it up." You've got real charisma from the neck down. Nixon with Bender's body has become electable purely through physical appearance despite everyone knowing he's Richard Nixon, who famously resigned in disgrace. The robots love the shiny metal body so much they overlook the corrupt head attached to it. This is also a metaphor for something, but pointing it out seems mean. Fry, Leela, and Bender break into Nixon's hotel room to steal the body back. Nixon catches them and delivers a speech. The voters of Earth aren't the pea-brained idiots they were back in your time. Computers may be twice as fast as they were in 1973, but your average voter is as drunk and stupid as ever. The only one who's changed is me. I've become bitter and, let's face it, crazy over the years. And once I'm swept into office, I'll sell our children's organs to zoos for meat, and I'll go into people's houses at night and wreck up the place. He cackles. Fry declares, "Well, he lost my vote," and Nixon responds, "Like one vote ever made a difference." They trade Nixon an audio tape of that speech for Bender's body back. Election coverage shows Nixon trailing with an estimated 0 votes at 7:59. Then the robot pulls open and Nixon wins. He appears with his head attached to a massive robot body, way bigger than Bender's body. This man upgraded significantly. His supporters cheer. Farnsworth reveals Nixon won by a single vote. Bender says he couldn't vote, convicted felon. Fry forgot to vote, Leela forgot to vote. Linda announces 6% turnout as the highest level in centuries. 3 people assumed their individual votes wouldn't matter and collectively installed a dictator who immediately starts destroying Washington, D.C., while screaming, "Aru, who's kicking who around now?" Throughout Futurama, this pattern repeats with brutal consistency. Fry's depression over being dumped by Michelle leads to him drunkenly stumbling into a cryogenic freezer for a prank, which freezes him for 1,000 years, which creates the entire show. One moment of giving up shapes literally everything afterward. In Roswell That Ends Well, Fry accidentally becomes his own grandfather, creating the genetic abnormality that makes him immune to the brain spawn in The Why of Fry, saving all conscious thought in the universe. His stupidity and poor impulse control become the exact qualities needed to prevent the extinction of all thinking beings. Bender casually selling his body for drinking money enables Nixon's presidency. Small decisions cascade into world-altering events constantly because everyone operates under the assumption that individual actions disappear into statistical noise when actually they compound exponentially. The episode's message is brutal. Your apathy matters. Your assumption that you're too small to change anything creates the exact conditions where bad things happen unopposed. 6% voter turnout means 94% of people looked at identical clone candidates arguing about 3 cents and decided participating was pointless. They were right that the candidates were meaningless. They were catastrophically wrong about participation being pointless. Nixon wins by 1 vote because 3 people assumed 1 vote doesn't matter, proving definitively that 1 vote absolutely matters when everyone makes that same calculation. Democracy dies through mass individual abdication of responsibility, disguised as rational self-interest, and apparently this happens so thoroughly by the 31st century that 6% engagement counts as a historic high. The system's broken, Everyone agrees the system's broken, so everyone stops participating, which ensures the system stays broken forever. Welcome to the feedback loop. Alright, on to the next theory. In episode Christmas Story, Fry complains about missing his family from the 20th century while decorating a palm tree. Pine trees went extinct 800 years ago. This'll be my first Christmas away from home. Everything's changed. He whines about this extensively while Leela listens, then storms out crying. Farnsworth reveals she's an orphan and the only one of her species in all the known universe. What a lonely life, Fry realizes. Here I am whining like a pig while all along Leela was lonely as a frog. I could kick myself. Amy volunteers to kick him for free. He goes shopping to buy her a present, gets attacked by murderous robot Santa, a friendly robot company creation from 2801, whose programming error makes him judge everyone naughty, and Leela saves him. They hold hands and she says, "You're lonely and I'm lonely, but together, we're lonely together." At the end, surrounded by the Planet Express crew, plus homeless robots, including Tinny Tim, Fry declares, "Even though I'm surrounded by robots and monsters and old people, I've never felt more at home." The episode reveals Futurama's core emotional truth. Everyone is catastrophically displaced and alone, so they form found families out of mutual desperation because being lonely together beats being lonely alone. The crew are the island of misfit toys. If the toys had existential dread and alcohol dependency, they stay together because literally where else would any of them go? The episode opens at a ski lodge where Conan O'Brien's head performs stand-up. Max Weinberg's head is just a skull in a jar. Someone forgot to feed him. Bender heckles, "No, they fixed that 900 years ago," in response to a Y2K joke. Then, "I doubt it." When O'Brien mentions walking to work, O'Brien responds, "I may have lost my freakishly long legs in the war of 2012, but I've still got something you'll never have. A soul," Bender cries. They go skiing. Fry and Leela discuss how global warming never happened. Actually, it did, but thank God nuclear winter canceled it out. Back at the lodge, they decorate for Christmas. Hermes distributes Christmas cards. Army TS, everyone gets mail except Leela. She watches the others open their cards and walks out. Fry continues complaining about missing his family. What's the point of Christmas when everyone you know died 1,000 years ago? I'm the loneliest person on Earth. Leela enters crying and he asks for sympathy. Amy explains she's an orphan. Farnsworth adds she's the only one of her species in the known universe. Fry decides to buy Leela a present to cheer her up. Everyone warns him about Robot Santa, who was built by the friendly robot company to determine who's naughty and nice, but due to a programming error, Santa's standards were set too high, and he invariably judges everyone to be naughty. Amy warns, if he catches you after dark, he'll chop off your head and stuff your neck full of toys from his sack of horrors. Fry goes shopping anyway. The department store suggests a Surface-to-Santa rocket launcher as a traditional gift. Society has fully normalized annual murderous Santa attacks. He settles on a parrot for $500 after nearly buying 500 stink lizards for $1 each. Girls like swarms of lizards, right? The parrot escapes. He chases it onto a clock face, nearly falls. Leela saves him. They walk down the street holding hands and Robot Santa appears. "You've been very naughty, Fry and Leela. I checked my list." Fry suggests checking it twice. "I perform over 50 mega checks per second. You're both naughty for disregarding each other's feelings." Santa shoots at them with a laser. They run. He throws a bauble grenade. They're trapped in an alcove. Fry declares, "I never thought it would end this way." Gunned down by Santa Claus. "Honestly, I didn't see it coming." They're about to kiss under mistletoe when Santa announces, "Your mistletoe is no match for my TO, W missile," and fires. The parrot flies in front of them and explodes. Fry, your present may need some assembly." They run into Bender, who's been caroling with homeless robots to rob people. Santa chases them all to Planet Express, where the crew fights him off using the Christmas tree as a weapon and electrocuting him with tree lights. He explodes up the chimney. They all sit down for Christmas dinner. Bender socks the crew plus La Barbara, plus the homeless robots, including Tinny Tim. Bender serves the exploded parrot he found in the street, like all the food I cook. Nibbler eats everything, including Tinny Tim's piece. Fry delivers his speech. "Look, the food isn't what's important. Tinny Tim, I'm so hungry. The important thing is we're all together for Christmas. And even though I'm surrounded by robots and monsters and old people, I've never felt more at home. They sing a song about Santa hunting you down and blasting your ass from here to Pakistan. Farnsworth takes his lab coat off, exposing himself. This is his thing, apparently. It's the worst Christmas celebration imaginable, and Fry's never been happier. Throughout Futurama, this pattern defines everything. Fry lost his entire timeline when he accidentally froze himself for 1,000 years. His parents, his brother, his nephew, his ex-girlfriend Michelle, his pizza delivery co-workers, DS Alf, everyone he knew died centuries ago. He wakes up with zero connections to anyone living. Leela is an orphan who grew up in the orphanarium, being bullied for having one eye. Her senior prom photo shows her alone, while other kids point and laugh. She believed she was an alien, the last of her species, completely unique, and therefore completely alone. Later, she discovers her mutant parents, who abandoned her at the orphanarium so she could have a better life on the surface, which means she spent her entire childhood thinking she was rejected for being a freak, when actually her parents loved her enough to give her up. Bender is a robot who desperately craves validation despite constantly claiming he's better than everyone and doesn't need friends. In Obsoletely Fabulous, he gets so insecure about new robot models he has a breakdown. In Godfellas, he meets God, probably, and discusses meaning and loneliness in the cosmos. He's a machine programmed to bend metal who instead spends his time stealing, drinking, and clinging to Fry like a desperate parasocial relationship. Zoidberg is an alien doctor who knows nothing about human medicine, lives in dumpsters, is excluded from every social event, and desperately wants belonging. The crew treats him like garbage, and he considers them his closest friends because what else does he have? Farnsworth is 160 years old and outlived everyone from his generation. He's literally ancient history walking around making inventions nobody asked for. The Planet Express crew stay together because they're the only people who accept each other's fundamental wrongness. Fry is a 21st century dropout lost in the future. Leela is a mutant cyclops who grew up believing she was an abandoned alien. Bender is a criminal robot with an alcohol dependency. Zoidberg is a homeless alien. Farnsworth is functionally immortal and going senile. Hermes is a bureaucrat who gave up his Olympic limbo dreams. Amy is a clumsy heiress whose parents constantly pressure her to marry and produce grandchildren. Nobody else would want this collection of disasters. They form a family because mutual desperation is stronger bonding than blood relations or shared interests. Being lonely together means you're technically less lonely, which is the best anyone can hope for in a universe that's vast, cold, and indifferent to whether you find meaning or die alone. Subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next video.